Ren Xiaosu acknowledged her and quietly put the explosive poker cards in his hand back into the palace. Wang Shenjian probably thought Ren Xiaosu was afraid of the consortium's combat troops, but he was actually worried that his identity would be exposed. The Zone Consortium should not know he was still alive, but just in case, it was better that he not reveal himself. Yesterday, Ren Xiaosu applied the black medicine on himself. But the problem was that after his wound had been stitched up, the black medicine did not work as effectively on his internal organs. Wang Shenzi said to the Zone Consortium officer with a smile, "You don't have to be so anxious. Just look at me. Could a handicapped person like me possibly get away from you all? We can go back to the Zone Consortium with you for questioning, but can you help us prepare some delicacies from the Zone Consortium's stronghold?" When he said that, even Ren Xiaosu was stunned. He did not expect Wang Shenzi to suddenly bring up the topic of getting something to eat. Why did it feel like he treated this as a vacation to the Zone Consortium's stronghold? Furthermore, Wang Shenzi didn't seem to mind talking about his disability at all. He had a very good mindset about things. But right at this moment, a car engine thrummed from afar again. The Zone Consortium officer was taken aback. Wang Shenzi's smile broadened as he said, "It looks like we can't make the trip anymore. If there's another chance in the future, we'll definitely go there." As he said that, an off-road vehicle appeared on the horizon. From afar, this off-road vehicle's lone presence seemed a little weak compared to the Zone Consortium's combat troops. But on that off-road vehicle were 3 numbers, 178. Typical organizations would usually put their emblem on their vehicles, but the symbol of Stronghold 178 was just 178. Everyone seemed to recognize these 3 numbers. The people in the off-road vehicle were probably here to receive Wang Shenzi and the others. But with only one vehicle coming, would the Zone Consortium let them leave? Ren Xiaosu quietly sat in the back seat of the vehicle. When the off-road vehicle arrived in front of everyone, the Zone Consortium soldiers did not dare move or even raise their guns. A burly man jumped out of the off-road vehicle and said with a laugh, "I'm Zhou Yinglong from Stronghold 178. Which one of you is Wang Shenzi? The commander has asked me to come and bring you all to Stronghold 178. It would have still been fine if it was just one vehicle, but it turned out that there was only one person in the car as well." But when the Zone Consortium officer heard the name Zhou Yinglong, Ren Xiaosu noticed the immediate change in his expression. Wang Shenzi smiled and said, "Me, sorry to trouble you, brother." Zhou Yinglong looked around at the surrounding Zone Consortium soldiers. "What is the Zone Consortium doing here? Trying to intercept us?" That officer of the Zone Consortium dropped his serious face from before. He turned around and said with a smile, No, we just wanted to invite the guests from the Central Plains for a visit to our Zone Consortium's stronghold." "What's so good about your Zone Consortium's stronghold? Bug off!" Zhou Yinglong sneered and said, "How dare you stop Commander Zhang's guest? You all must have grown a pair lately, hey? Disappear from my sight. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Zhou Yinglong was around 1.9 meters tall. His stature was like that of a beast, and his square face was full of vigor. He was actually trying to threaten nearly 100 regular soldiers from the Zone Consortium into backing off all by himself. But what was even more shocking was that the Zone Consortium officer really got back into his vehicle and left in a hurry. Zhou Yinglong watched as the Zone Consortium's vehicles fled and muttered, "Fuck, I almost played it too big. If I had known, I would have asked the commander to let me bring more people with me." Wang Shenzi and the others looked at each other speechlessly. Zhou Yinglong turned around and said to him with a smile, "Follow my car and we'll head straight to Stronghold 178. Commander Zhang is already waiting for you." "How long will it take to get to Stronghold 178? Wang Shenjian asked. "It's approximately a 4 or 5 day journey." Zhou Yinglong said, "One of the roads ahead was deliberately wrecked by the bandits. We'll have to thank our lucky stars if we can even drive above 15 km/h. Wang Shenzi said, "This zone consortium," Zhou Yinglong waved it off. "They're just hyenas. They're nothing to worry about." Ren Xiaosu suddenly understood the way Zhou Yinglong spoke. Regardless of whether he was really worried, his speech had to be tough. Zhou Yinglong was stunned when he saw Ren Xiaosu in the vehicle. "Someone's injured? How did you get injured?" There were still traces of blood on Ren Xiaosu's clothes on his right side. The blood had seeped out, and Zhou Yinglong happened to have sharp eyes. He could immediately tell at a glance. Wang Shenzi explained, "Wasn't there flooding in the valley? This young man is a refugee who lived there. He was swept downstream by the flood, but we managed to save him." "Oh, so that's what happened." Zhou Yinglong sized up Ren Xiaosu. "It's true that there was flooding. But there's also a lot of bandits in the valley, it's not just refugees, you know?" "Hey, kid, are you a refugee or a bandit?" Ren Xiaosu said, "I'm a refugee." "Which settlement?" Zhou Yinglong asked again. "It's about 50 kilometers east of Mount Daban," Ren Xiaosu said. "Then do you know who Old Lu is?" Zhou Yinglong asked. Ren Xiaosu's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly realized Stronghold 178 would probably have a good understanding of the valley. Otherwise, Zhou Yinglong wouldn't have asked about a particular person out of nowhere. He asked calmly, "Which Old Lu? Lu Zhengkui or Lu Disheng?" Zhou Yinglong started laughing. "All right, if you can mention those two names, then you must really be from a refugee settlement." But at this moment, Ren Xiaosu felt his heart ache. Lu Disheng and Lu Zhengkui were both honest peasants who lived in the settlement. It could be said that those who escaped to the settlements were all honest people who could not stand the organizations or the way of life in the strongholds towns. So they could only go into the wild to seek refuge. However, whichever Old Lu he was referring to was probably dead from the flooding. Ren Xiaosu did not feel any joy in clearing the interrogation. Each time his intense hatred was stoked, it was as if his heart was being carved out. He simply could not find it in him to forgive that. If the Zone Consortium did not cease to exist, Ren Xiaosu would never be at ease. The convoy set off again. This time, no one doubted Ren Xiaosu's identity anymore. However, Ren Xiaosu became even quieter. He did not want to say anything else. In the car, Wang Shenjian said, "Brother, this zone consortium will probably be the first problem in our bid to open up the trade routes. The accessibility of this area is a secondary issue." Wang Shenzi grunted in agreement. "It'll be easy to repair the roads. All we need are people and money to fix that. But it still remains to be seen if the returns for these repairs will be worth it. If the Zone Consortium still continues to stop us, it'll be useless even if the roads get repaired. Then should we join forces with Stronghold 178 to eliminate the Zone Consortium?" Wang Shenjian asked. "We can deliberate on that." Wang Shenzi said calmly, "We'll see what Zhang Jinglan has to say first." While they were discussing, they did not avoid mentioning anything in the presence of Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. But things were different now. Zhang Jinglan had returned. The higher UPS of the Zone Consortium could still remember how powerful Stronghold 178 was over a decade ago. They had been building up their power over the years, but if Stronghold 178 were allowed to return to their former glory, the Zone Consortium would very likely be doomed. This was why the Zone Consortium was not taking advantage of the situation even though the Qing Consortium and the Yang Consortium were currently embroiled in a fierce war. On one hand, Qing Zhen had cut off the Zone Consortium's shortcut to the south. On the other hand, the Zone Consortium was still wary of Stronghold 178 and did not dare to make any unusual moves. At night, Zhou Yinglong led them to a downwind spot to set up camp. It seemed that Zhou Yinglong came out to the wilderness very often, as he looked very familiar with everything he was doing out here. After applying the black medicine, Ren Xiaosu's wound did not feel so painful anymore. However, he still pretended like he had trouble moving around. When he got out of the vehicle slowly to move about, Wang Shenjian even came over specifically to help him. Ren Xiaosu rejected it and expressed that he could handle himself if he moved slowly. Wang Shenjian did not seem bothered by the blood on his body. Ren Xiaosu found a mound and sat down. Suddenly, someone said, "I heard that many of the strongholds in the southwest have been destroyed. I wonder what happened there. The strongholds in the central plains are still doing well." Zhou Yinglong chuckled. "Let me share something with you guys about a good brother of mine called Su Xianchu. All the strongholds he's been to, other than our stronghold 178, have collapsed. At first, everyone thought he was a jinx, but when stronghold 178 still remained standing, we didn't think any further about it. But when he went to stronghold 88 recently, stronghold 88 also got destroyed." Wang Shenzi laughed and said, "Did nothing happen to him? What can possibly happen to him? He always leaves before the collapse of the strongholds, so he's basically unaffected." Zhou Yinglong chuckled and said, "Brother Su Xianchu is too tough to die. He'll be fine even if the strongholds get destroyed. He must be the chosen one then." Wang Shenzi said, "Can you introduce him to us when we get to the stronghold?" "Haha, of course." Zhou Yinglong said, but old Su wouldn't admit to this himself. He said that there's someone who's even tougher than him. He always leaves before the stronghold collapses, so he's unaffected. But that close brother of his has never managed to escape on time, yet he's still fine. When Ren Xiaosu heard this, he immediately knew who Zhou Yinglong was referring to. He recalled the strongholds he had been to had all collapsed. Even the Yang Consortium's stronghold 88 was not spared. But the collapse of these strongholds should not have anything to do with him, right? The first few that were destroyed were either caused by the earthquake or due to Li Shenton's revenge and the experimentals invasions. Even stronghold 88 it was destroyed because Qing Zhen wanted to rescue Luolan. It really had nothing to do with him. Wang Shenzi was even more intrigued after hearing what Zhou Yinglong said. "If I can meet this chosen one you mentioned, I'm sure it will be very interesting." Zhou Yinglong carried a box of wine out of the vehicle and asked, "Do you guys drink?" This Jiangwan wine was brewed with excellent barley grains and water from snow mountain streams. "It's a little sweet." The others shook their heads. Only Wang Shenzi said, "I can drink with you, but does stronghold 178 allow drinking in their military?" Zhou Yinglong remarked, "At our place, we're allowed to drink during our winter break. Without alcohol to warm our bodies, it's impossible to function." "But it's almost summer now," Wang Shenzi said. Zhou Yinglong thought for a moment. "It'll be fine if you don't tell the commander. I've been saving this wine since winter. But there shouldn't be many grain producers around stronghold 178, right? Where did your barley come from?" Wang Shenjian asked. Zhou Yinglong stopped talking. This seemed to be a very important secret. Ren Xiaosu also realized there was something secretive about stronghold 178 as well. There were no barley fields in the vicinity of stronghold 178. If it were really as the outside world had said, stronghold 178's people tended not to leave the stronghold under ordinary circumstances. In that case, why would Zhou Yinglong know so much about the refugee settlements in the valley? And how did the barley get transported to stronghold 178? Zhou Yinglong changed the topic. "Did you come from the Central Plains with plans to do business with Commander Zhang? Does the alcohol in the Central Plains taste good?" "Of course, grain production is teeming in the Central Plains. We produce tea and textiles as well," Wang Shenzi said in his wheelchair with a smile, "but what Commander Zhang is after most are not these, but medicine." When he heard the words medicine, Zhou Yinglong's eyes lit up. The people in the military knew exactly what stronghold 178 lacked the most. What outsiders did not know was that even though stronghold 178 lacked grainstuffs, too, they did not lack for meat. So they definitely would not starve to death. As for medicine, that was precious. Medicine determined the survival rate after any battles they participated in. Realization dawned on Ren Xiaosu. It was no wonder Zhang Jinglin wanted to open up the trade routes so badly. And the Zone Consortium had probably guessed the significance of these actions. When he listened in on Zhang Jinglin's classes, Mr. Zhang would say that the ancient Silk Road was very important. Of course, times were different now, so the goods traded on the Silk Road would definitely be different as well. At that time, Ren Xiaosu could not understand why Zhang Jinglin had suddenly brought up this subject. But now it seemed like Zhang Jinglin had been thinking about it for a very long time. Wang Shenzi stopped after taking 2 sips of the wine. Then Wang Shenjian helped him cover his knee with a blanket. "You can't hold your liquor," Zhou Yinglong muttered. All of a sudden, he looked at Ren Xiaosu and asked, "Do you drink?" Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "No, I'm still injured." Zhou Yinglong thought for a moment. "Since alcohol is an anti-inflammatory, your wounds won't get inflamed after drinking some. Don't you think I make sense?" Next to them, Wang Shenjian said angrily, "What kind of crappy theory is that? After an injury, the immune system will deal with the damage and fight infection. If you drink alcohol, you'll numb the immune system. When that happens, you can just wait for your death." Zhou Yinglong opened his mouth but was unable to refute Wang Shenjian due to his limited knowledge. In the end, he could only mutter to Ren Xiaosu, "Don't listen to her. She might not be right either. Have you heard about how Guan Yu scraped poison off his bones? Even the martial saint drank alcohol after being wounded." Ren Xiaosu shook his head helplessly. It was not that he was afraid that drinking would affect his injuries, but that he did not want to lose consciousness and rationality among this unfamiliar crowd and environment. Zhou Yinglong mumbled, "How boring." Right at this moment, Ren Xiaosu suddenly heard the sound of a vehicle passing through the wilderness in the distance. Zhou Yinglong put down the bottle and sneered, "The Zone Consortium has grown too bold. Do you think the Zone Consortium has ordered their people to attack us?" Wang Shenzi looked at Zhou Yinglong. "Does the Zone Consortium dare to attack people from Stronghold 178? In recent years, the Zone Consortium has been developing at a rapid pace. They probably found some backing or something." Zhou Yinglong sneered. One king number is the name of a people living in the western region of China, particularly the Hexi corridor. http://www.chinaknowledge.de/historyaltera/chiang.html. 2. Previously in Chapter 333, it was mistakenly translated that Stronghold 178's grain reserves were ranked first in the entire Stronghold system. That is untrue, and only their mineral reserves are ranked first. Ren Xiaosu glanced at Zhou Yinglong and determined that the burly man from the northwest was definitely a supernatural being. Otherwise, Zhang Jinglin would not have sent him here alone, nor would Zhou Yinglong not grab a weapon when facing a possible enemy attack. However, when the Zone Consortium's convoy finally approached, it surprised them. The moment the people in the vehicle got out, they immediately expressed that they were not carrying any weapons with them. The leader of the group was an unfamiliar young man. A few people dressed in chef's attire jumped out of the cars behind them. They were carrying some pots and pans, while some even carried portable gas stoves. The young man said with a smile, "Good evening, everyone. I'm the Zone Consortium's Zhong Xiang. I heard all of you wanted to have a taste of our Zone Consortium's delicacies, but since you can't go to our stronghold due to your schedule, I've brought my chefs out here instead so you can get to enjoy authentic food like caramelized potatoes, 100 blossoms chicken, and roasted whole goat." When Ren Xiaosu heard this from inside the vehicle, he sneered. The Zone Consortium was clearly eager for everyone here to die, yet they pretended to be really welcoming. Before Zhong Cheng revealed his intentions, he had acted really warm and hospitable too. But in the end? Even now, Ren Xiaosu could not understand why Zhong Cheng would attack them. This was what Ren Xiaosu was most furious about. Looking at this young man named Zhong Xiang, Ren Xiaosu was very sure that he and Zhongcheng had a close relationship. He was considering if he should kill Zhongcheng on the spot. But what would he do after killing Zhongxiang? That would not be enough to sate his fury. Ren Xiaosu needed to make sure the entire Zhong consortium was destroyed. Just killing Zhongxiang alone would not erase his hatred. Ren Xiaosu was even considering intentionally creating a conflict between Wang Shenzi, Zhou Yinglong, and the Zhong consortium. For example, killing Zhongxiang and framing it as though Wang Shenzi and the others had made the move. But if he did that, they would not be able to return to the Central Plains safely, right? These people had saved his life, so he could not do that. Ren Xiaosu took a slow, deep breath to calm himself down. He wanted to gain the support of Wang Shenzi and Stronghold 178 to use their power to seek out the best opportunity to destroy the Zhong consortium. As the saying went, slap not a smiling face. Even Zhou Yinglong was not saying anything at this moment. After the food was prepared, the aroma spread throughout the entire campsite. Zhongxiang asked the chef to cut him a slice of mutton. He grabbed it and put it into his mouth. Let me taste it first for you all. It's cooked. The meat is crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, so please enjoy it. I won't disturb you any further and hope that you'll have a pleasant journey in the northwest. After saying that, Zhongxiang actually left with his men. The taste test seemed more like it was to prove to Wang Shenzi and the others that the food was not poisoned. When Zhongxiang departed, Zhou Yinglong spat on the ground. What good can possibly come of a hyena trying to please you? Wang Shenzi smiled and said, why do you hate the Zhong consortium so much? When Commander Zhang left the stronghold, the Zhong consortium loved throwing themselves at Stronghold 178, and even secretly sent their people behind the walls. That ended with the news in Stronghold 178 always getting leaked in advance. Zhou Yinglong said with a dark expression, this group of hyenas kept fighting for power and benefits in Stronghold 178, creating a foul atmosphere in the organization. It was only later on that we found out the chief of staff was actually a bastard son of the Zhong consortium. Commander Zhang was quite upset after he found out about this. Since then, Stronghold 178 stopped accepting outsiders. That was mainly to prevent people with ulterior motives from infiltrating the stronghold. How did you guys learn he was an illegitimate son of the Zhong consortium? Wang Shenjian asked. Zhou Yinglong sneered. Through torture, of course. Ren Xiaosu thought to himself, doesn't that make him a sleeper agent? Who knows how long that bastard son of the Zhong consortium was lurking to even rise to the role of chief of staff? Wang Shenzi nodded. It was no wonder the people from Stronghold 178 hated the Zhong consortium so much. He smiled and said, we used to worry about such matters too. Zhou Yinglong was stunned. Have you stopped worrying? It's been resolved, Wang Shenzi replied. Can this be resolved too? Zhou Yinglong frowned. It's impossible to guard against those with ulterior motives once they get into the stronghold. We have artificial intelligence to depend on. Wang Shenjian smiled as she explained, our AI can use a camera to analyze whether a person is suspicious. This time, it was Ren Xiaosu's turn to be confused. What was this artificial intelligence that was being talked about? Ren Xiaosu was not the only one who was dumbfounded. Even Zhou Yinglong was confused. What the hell is that? Wang Shenjian explained, AL is something that our predecessors researched before the cataclysm. It was fortunate that we managed to preserve all of the data from their research. To put it simply, we want our computer program to have the ability to analyze things independently like a normal human being. However, our AI doesn't really have sapience. Currently, the philosophy behind AI is still don't tell me all that. I can't understand it, Zhou Yinglong interrupted. Surely what you're talking about is mysticism, right? Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt like he could identify with Zhou Yinglong. Anything he could not understand would immediately be deemed superstitious. He knew what machines and programs were, but to make machines and programs think like humans? Was that even possible? Ren Xiaosu did not believe it. Machines were just machines. Due to the cataclysm, humanity's scientific advancement deviated. Whatever research that remained behind would continue to get studied and become the mainstream research direction of the organizations. This would allow them to instantly gain a lead over the other organizations in certain fields. Wang Shenzi said, "Your Stronghold 178 can also deploy our AI to screen for any spies." Zhou Yinglong wasn't stupid. He chuckled and said bluntly, "Although I don't know what that thing is, and it might be very reliable in screening for spies, our Stronghold 178 will never allow something like that to monitor us. What if you can operate it remotely? We don't have the technology to fight you." Wang Shenzi did not mind. "It's fine, I was just offering a suggestion." Zhou Yinglong wondered, "Even your machines have become intelligent. Please don't tell me you live in a floating stronghold in the sky or something." Wang Shenjian laughed. "That's pseudoscience. What kind of propulsion can support an entire stronghold and make it float high in the air? Humans can't achieve something like that. There isn't actually much of a difference between our stronghold and your stronghold except we live a little more prosperously, have more high-rises, and have better living conditions. We have factories and grain fields outside the stronghold just like you. The nanomachines the Yang Consortium and Li Consortium developed are not something we have." The entire conversation, Ren Xiaosu did not say a word. As a refugee, he should not understand these things, and nobody cared if he could understand them. Thus, the rumor that people in the Central Plains did not close their doors at night was not because that place was civilized, but because it was too easy to be caught after committing a crime. Ren Xiaosu could not help but ask, "Are there also refugees in the Central Plains?" Wang Shenjian looked at Ren Xiaosu. "Yes." Ren Xiaosu realized the Central Plains were not exactly a paradise either. From his point of view, there was no such thing as paradise as long as oppression existed. When Ren Xiaosu learned of the meaning of the phrase artificial intelligence, he found it extremely ridiculous. Back when he was still living in town, he did not even own any electronics. In the entire town, only brick houses like the ones that Wang Fugui lived in had electrical cables wired. The rest of the refugees did not even have light bulbs in their homes, but someone here was actually saying that machines in the Central Plains were close to being intelligent. Ren Xiaosu found this unreal. Zhou Yinglong stated, "That means the combat strength of those in Central Plains is about the same as ours, but the only difference is that there's been a breakthrough in this pain of an AI thing." To this burly man from Stronghold 178, the first thing he was most concerned about was the combat strength of those in the Central Plains. Wang Shenzi laughed and said, "The wars happening in the Central Plains aren't going to reach Stronghold 178 anytime soon, so don't worry." "Who can say?" Zhou Yinglong muttered. "All right, get some rest. We'll reach Stronghold 178 in another 2 days." At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was leaning on a mound. Here he was at the northernmost part of the valley, an area that was closest to where the Zone Consortium called its territory, where the vast expanse was covered in yellow dust. Because there were no industrial activities out here, the stars in the sky seemed to be right in front of him. But there was no one to keep watch for Ren Xiaosu anymore. Ren Xiaosu stared into the void while thinking. No matter how hard he tried to fall asleep, he just could not. He wondered where Yan Liuyuan was right now. Perhaps he was already on his way to the Central Plains? Did Wang Fugui and the others survive? Ren Xiaosu had seen Zhang Wu's power undergo a new transformation at the last minute before they got swept away by the flood. So with Zhang Wu around, the others might have survived. According to Wang Shenzi, the Central Plains were downstream of this river. It would flow past strongholds 46, 37, 28, 7, 9 and end at stronghold 1. If Ren Xiaosu wanted to seek out his family, he could go there according to this route. Ren Xiaosu made a mental note of it. He would definitely go and look for Yan Liuyuan after the Zone Consortium was destroyed. But before the Zone Consortium's destruction, Ren Xiaosu did not want to drag Yan Liuyuan, Wang Fugui, and the others into this mess. At this moment, Wang Shenzi rolled up to Ren Xiaosu in his wheelchair and asked, "Are you thinking about your family and friends?" Ren Xiaosu gave him a look. "Actually, I don't have any family left, just friends who were like family. I'll help you look for them after I return to the Central Plains. Tell me their names." Wang Shenzi smiled and said, "If they really did manage to get to the Central Plains, I'll definitely help you locate them." However, Ren Xiaosu remained silent for a moment. He did not want to give Wang Fugui and Yan Liuyuan's names because he did not know if Wang Shenzi was a good or bad person. How could he possibly entrust the safety of Wang Fugui and the others to someone else? He believed that even without Wang Shenzi's help, Wang Fugui and the others would still be able to live well. Ren Xiaosu suddenly said, "Thank you, but only one of my friends still remains. His name is Li Shenton." Ren Xiaosu did not tell the truth. Wang Shenzi smiled and said, "All right, I'll remember it." After the convoy restarted their journey, the Zone Consortium did not reappear. After driving for some distance, the sunset in the wilderness was starting to arrive later. On the night before reaching Stronghold 178, the sun only went below the horizon after 8 p.m. The vastness of the northwest was something Ren Xiaosu had never seen before when he was in the southwest. In his wheelchair, Wang Shenzi looked out into the vast plains and snowy mountains in the distance and said with emotion, "Today, I'm finally able to appreciate how large this world truly is." Zhou Yinglong chuckled and said, "A real man should be living out here. You people from the Central Plains aren't noble enough." Wang Shenzi did not refute that. He asked, "Why did Commander Zhang leave Stronghold 178? Zhou Yinglong asked in return, "And how did you get to know our commander?" After Commander Zhang left Stronghold 178 all those years ago, he traveled to the Central Plains. We got to know each other then. Wang Shenzi smiled and said, "Back then, I still had full control of my legs. But time passes like a song. He and I are both getting old." Zhou Yinglong curled his lips. "Our commander is still young though." All of a sudden, a convoy of cars appeared on the horizon. Zhou Yinglong waved excitedly and said, "I used the satellite phone to inform the commander yesterday that you were arriving soon. Who'd have thought you'd be so important that the commander would even come out personally to welcome you?" Wang Shenzi smiled without saying anything. Beside him, Wang Shenjian looked at Ren Xiaosu. "When we get to Stronghold 178, it shouldn't be difficult for my brother to arrange for you to join Stronghold 178 with his influence." Ren Xiaosu was a little stunned. How long had it been since he last saw Zhang Jinglin? He had squatted outside the school and listened to the classes for 3 years. Later on, he was finally allowed to attend classes in the school by Zhang Jinglin. Counting the days, Zhang Jinglin and he had known each other for quite some time. But that teacher had turned into the commander of Stronghold 178 all of a sudden. The vehicles on the horizon drove over in the twilight of the sunset. When the convoy arrived in front of everyone, the first person to jump out of a vehicle was someone Ren Xiaosu knew, Su Xianchu. When Su Xianchu saw Zhou Yinglong and the others, he was stunned. Zhou Yinglong smiled and said, "Bro, why have you come in advance to pick us up?" Afterwards, Su Xianchu walked in a trance past him and came to Ren Xiaosu. When he saw Ren Xiaosu's pale face and the bloodstains on his body, he asked anxiously, "What happened? You got injured?" Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "It's just a minor injury. I'll be fine soon." "You call that a minor injury?" Su Xianchu was shocked. He lifted Ren Xiaosu's shirt and saw the scar on the right side of Ren Xiaosu's abdomen. "It's a penetrating wound? Who did this? Weren't you at Stronghold 88? Ren Xiaosu said, "It's a long story. This was done by the Zone Consortium." Where's Liu Yuan? Su Xianchul looked around at everyone. And where's Wang Fugui? Ren Xiaosu's face darkened for a moment. We got separated. Zhou Yinglong, Wang Shenjian, and Wang Shenzi were all stunned. What's going on? Didn't he say he was a normal refugee? Meanwhile, Zhou Yinglong was even more surprised. He had never heard Su Xianchu having friends on the outside. Wait a minute. It seemed like Su Xianchu really did have a friend on the outside. Damn! Was Stronghold 178 about to play host to the two great jinxes? While they were traveling here, Zhou Yinglong thought Ren Xiaosu was a normal refugee. On one hand, Ren Xiaosu's act was very believable. After all, he really was a refugee to begin with. On the other hand, the information Ren Xiaosu mentioned regarding the refugee settlement matched up with what Zhou Yinglong had asked. So why had his status changed all of a sudden? Wang Shenjian pursed her lips. She whispered to Wang Shenzi, "Brother, he lied to us. He's too deceptive." After saving Ren Xiaosu, Wang Shenjian was the one who stitched up his wound. She cleaned off the dirt on his face too. She had thought Ren Xiaosu was a pitiful refugee who looked rather honest. But in the end, he didn't speak a single truthful word the entire trip. Women hated being lied to. In just an instant, Wang Shenjian's impression of Ren Xiaosu had gone down the drain. The only thing she did not expect was that Ren Xiaosu actually had contact with Stronghold 178. Wang Shenzi smiled indifferently and said, "He's not exactly deceptive. It's quite normal that he didn't trust us. It must be this cautiousness that helped him to survive in the wilderness. But at his age, I wonder what he's been through to constantly be so wary. He still lied." Wang Shenjian got unhappy. At this moment, Zhang Jinglin got out of a car. There was also a group of people from the convoy standing guard next to him. Zhang Jinglin said to them with a laugh, "You guys don't have to be so uptight. Everyone here is an old friend." But no matter what he said, the burly men behind still followed him closely. Someone mumbled, "What if someone tries to harm you?" Wang Shenzi was smiling as he watched this scene play out. He was a little envious of Zhang Jinglin's high status in Stronghold 178. He was clearly a frail scholar, yet he was being supported by this group of burly northwestern men. The people following Zhang Jinglin were all fully armed and looked extremely menacing. If they were deployed to their stronghold in the Central Plains, the AI might think they were bad guys and tell the Public Order Division to arrest them all. Zhang Jinglin suddenly saw Ren Xiaosu as well. He frowned and greeted Wang Shenzi briefly before coming over to Ren Xiaosu. "What happened? Where's Liu Yuan? Where's Xiaoyu?" Just like Su Xianchu, Zhang Jinglin lifted Ren Xiaosu's shirt and took a look at his wound. "It's a puncture. Could this be the same as the wounds some of our soldiers suffered when they got ambushed?" Someone behind him leaned forward to have a look. "It's been stitched up, so I can't tell. Why don't we remove the stitches and get a better look?" Ren Xiaosu was speechless. Who the hell would suggest removing the stitches before a wound healed just so they could have a look? Zhang Jinglin asked seriously, "Who did this?" "It was the Zone Consortium's Zong Cheng." Ren Xiaosu did not hold back anymore now that Zhang Jinglin was here. They'd known each other for many years and were very good friends. He said, "We had planned on heading to Mt. Kushui to settle down there. But along the way, we encountered Zong Cheng, who led his men in an ambush." Zhang Jinglin frowned. "Zong Cheng? Mr. Zhang, do you know Zong Cheng?" Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. "I do." Zhang Jinglin said, "Zong Cheng and Zong Xiang are the cream of the crop among the younger generation of the Zong clan. It seems like the higher UPS of the Zong Consortium intend to let Zong Xiang take control of the Zong Consortium, while Zong Cheng will be Zong Xiang's shadow. They're biological brothers." Ren Xiaosu remembered the clean-shaven young man named Zong Xiang. He was practically close enough to him that he could have killed him. But it wasn't exactly a missed opportunity either. By killing Zhong Xiang, Zhong Cheng would probably get alerted. There were still many more opportunities in the future to kill them together. However, Zhang Jinglan said, Zhong Cheng is a supernatural being. His superpower seems to allow him to make someone into his puppet, but we still can't verify that as he keeps a very low profile and doesn't act predictably. Ren Xiaosu frowned. If Zhong Cheng were really as Zhang Jinglan had said, could it be that Zhong Cheng had attacked them because he wanted to control him? No. If he wanted to control him, he wouldn't have tried to kill him. So that meant, he was trying to gain control of Yang Zijian? Wang Shenzi and the others had been cast aside. Wang Shenjian stared blankly as Zhang Jinglan and Su Zianchu stood around Ren Xiaosu. Was this young man so highly revered in Stronghold 178? What the hell? They had picked up this young man on the road. How did he turn out to be such an important person? They really did pick him up by chance. Wang Shenjian turned to look at Zhou Yinglong. You don't know this Ren Xiaosu? Isn't he from Stronghold 178? Zhou Yinglong was also a little confused. I didn't know he knew the commander either. Moreover, Zhang Jinglan's attitude towards Ren Xiaosu seemed to be a little special. Now that Zhou Yinglong was thinking about it, Su Zianchu was also recommended to Stronghold 178 by Ren Xiaosu, wasn't he? At this moment, Zhang Jinglan whispered something to Ren Xiaosu. Then he turned around and said with embarrassment to Wang Shenzi, I'm sorry, Shenzi, but Ren Xiaosu is my student. I wasn't expecting to see him here, and he's even seriously injured too. Wang Shenzi said in surprise, he's your student? Then why isn't he a member of Stronghold 178? Zhang Jinglan replied, this student is a little more peculiar. Let's head back to Stronghold 178 first before I fill you in further. Zhou Yinglong suddenly muttered, it's over, we're done for. The strongholds he's been to have all collapsed. Our Stronghold 178 has collected two of these great jinxes together. And one of them is even a student of the commander. The burly man next to him asked, Old Zhou, what are you mumbling about? Nothing, it's nothing. When they set off again, Ren Xiaosu was still sitting in Wang Shenjian's vehicle. But he noticed that something was off about Wang Shenjian's expression. She looked to be sulking. However, Ren Xiaosu did not give any explanation and only said, thank you for saving me. I had no choice, so please understand. Wang Shenjian pursed her lips and said, yeah, that's right, you're a big shot. So of course you had to hide your identity to prevent others from harming you. Ren Xiaosu did not say anything further. He just looked out of the window. Zhang Jinglan had told him earlier that they should head to Stronghold 178 first. Stronghold 178 had some ideas for dealing with the Zone Consortium. If he wanted to seek revenge, he could only rely on Stronghold 178 for now. Even the Qing Consortium couldn't divert their attention as they were busy defending against the Yang Consortium's desperate counterattacks. Zhang Jinglan knew exactly what Ren Xiaosu wanted. So he only needed one sentence to convince him. All of a sudden, Wang Shenjian asked in a soft voice, did something happen to your family as well? Was it caused by the Zone Consortium? Ren Xiaosu continued staring out of the window as he grunted a response. Whatever, you're forgiven. Wang Shenjian said, don't feel too sad. We'll help you find your friends in the Central Plains. Ren Xiaosu sighed. A woman's mood was really complicated and volatile. Their attitude could switch faster than flipping through a book. Even though the strongholds Ren Xiaosu came across in the past had shown signs of aging, their walls had never taken such serious damage before. Comparatively, they looked to be in really good condition. But the walls of Stronghold 178 were different. At first sight, Ren Xiaosu got the feeling that this wall seemed to have tenacity built into it. He suddenly understood why people referred to Stronghold 178 as a fortress. This was a fortress-type stronghold that was truly built for war. There was far more attention put into the building of its defenses than any other strongholds that Ren Xiaosu had been to. Zhou Yinglong said proudly, "We all call this Fortress 178. It's totally different from those weak strongholds out there." Ren Xiaosu stood under the towering walls of Fortress 178, while the soldiers on the tall walls were on alert. But as they had arrived with Zhang Jinglin, the soldiers on the walls did not issue any warnings to stop them. According to Su Xianchu, a stranger would find it very difficult to get close to this stronghold. Without Ren Xiaosu's recommendation letter, it would also have been impossible for him to get in. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "I wrote a few recommendation letters for others as well. Did they come to Fortress 178? Su Xianchu shook his head. "No, something must have happened to them then." Ren Xiaosu sighed. Then Ren Xiaosu dug a bullet out of the wall. "Why are there bullets lodged in the walls?" Fortress 178 was naturally constructed to defend against enemies. But from what Ren Xiaosu remembered, everyone had said that Fortress 178 was built to defend against wild animals. Everyone said there were fewer wild animals in the interior because humans had chased them to the outer perimeter of the stronghold ring. Meanwhile, Fortress 178 towered over the northwest to prevent a large number of terrifying wild animals from invading inland. But how could bullets lodged in the wall be explained? It was obviously left behind by an enemy who had fired at the walls. And only humans knew how to use firearms. Su Xianchu smiled and said, "You'll understand in the future. In this era of firearms and explosives, the only true enemies of humans are humans themselves." These words sounded somewhat familiar to Ren Xiaosu. A librarian named Anyukian had said something similar before. However, Anyukian was referring to how science was uncontrollable and that humans would create a power so massive they could not control it in the end. But Su Xianchu was more straightforward, stating the enemies of Fortress 178 were also humans. The thick and heavy gate of Fortress 178 slowly lifted. The rumble sounded like an enormous dragon roaring. As the group walked in, everyone was surprised to find that although Fortress 178 looked old, it was unusually clean and tidy. Ren Xiaosu had thought this place where burly men from the northwest lived would be very dirty and messy, but that was not the case. After passing through the gate, they ended up on a very long street. At the end of the street, a gigantic copper bell hung high above in a tower. Su Xianchu described to Ren Xiaosu, "This bell is a little different from the one at our previous stronghold. While the ones at the other strongholds are used for telling the time, the bells here at Fortress 178 only ring in warning. When the bell rings, everyone in the military prepares to fight to their deaths." "When was the last time it rang?" Ren Xiaosu asked. 16 years ago. Su Xianchu lamented, "It sucks that I wasn't here to see that sight. Many people in the interior don't even know there was a war here." Fortress 178 is like a barrier that holds all of the dangers and darkness on the outside. There were many common folk on the streets, and they were all dressed in cloth clothing. Neon signs were rarely seen outside the shops, and there were barely any private cars driving on the road. Occasionally, the military would pass by in an off-road vehicle. "Curious," Wang Shenjian said, "this place looks really primitive." Su Xianchu said, "We don't have enough electricity. The new power plant at the outer perimeter is still being built. However, there isn't enough manpower in Fortress 178, so the construction process is very slow. We used to have a very large power station, but that was destroyed in the war. I don't think there's enough resources either." Wang Shenjian said, "The northwest is quite suitable for planting cotton. There's a good amount of light, and water from the snow mountains and groundwater are also abundant. Why didn't you all grow more cotton?" Su Xianchu looked at her and said, "We have to make sure we can fill our stomachs first." Ren Xiaosu looked at the sites around Fortress 178. To be honest, it was a little dingy. But for some reason, he found this place much more comfortable than any of the other strongholds. When the pedestrians saw Zhang Jinglin's convoy passing through the streets, they did not deliberately fawn upon him. Instead, they greeted him as though they were old friends before getting back to their own business. Su Xianchu gave Ren Xiaosu a look. "Xiaosu, can that black medicine of yours be mass-produced? We have some people here who got frostbite during the winter and can't seem to heal. Furthermore, we've always had a lack of medicine for our battles. If we had your black medicine, that would be great news for our Fortress 178. Su Xianchu had heard about Ren Xiaosu being a doctor in town, and Zhang Jinglin also knew about this. Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "There's no way to mass-produce it." Su Xianchu was a little disappointed. "That's all right. When the trade routes are opened, we can start buying medicine from the Central Plains." Fortress 178 lacked not only medicine, but also clothes, food, and so on. For Zhang Jinglin, who had just returned to Fortress 178, reopening the trade routes was an extremely urgent matter. Zhang Jinglin had spent several months eliminating the turmoil in Fortress 178. Now it was time to consider the development of the fortress. Su Xianchu arranged for Ren Xiaosu and the others to stay in a small building. "This is where we entertain our guests. Please don't mind if it's a little bare." Ren Xiaosu shook his head. "It's already quite nice." Wang Shenzi, Wang Shenjian, and the others might not have stayed in such a dilapidated place before, but since Ren Xiaosu had even lived in a shack before, there was no way he would mind it. A little embarrassed, Su Xianchu replied, "Xiaosu, your wound hasn't healed yet. I'll go to the supply division to apply for some medicine for you. However, we're missing a lot of drugs in the fortress, so I might not be able to get any." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "Don't worry, I still have some black medicine with me." That's good, that's good." Su Xianchu rubbed his hands together and said with a laugh, "Then would you have any to spare?" Su Xianchu was a little embarrassed to say this out loud. One of the soldiers under him had gotten injured during his training, and his wound still hadn't healed. In fact, the supply division had run out of medicine, so he could only live with the injury. Now that Ren Xiaosu had come, rather than taking good care of him, he even ended up asking him for something. What the hell was he thinking? But Ren Xiaosu stuffed a small porcelain bottle into Su Xianchu's hands. "Don't mention it." In the past, even when Su Xianchu was at his lowest, he was still willing to give away the remaining half of his cornbread to Ren Xiaosu. In that case, Ren Xiaosu could not be petty towards Su Xianchu. The clothes of those in the fortress were very monotone and were mainly in shades of dark blue, dark green, or yellow. At present, the textile dyeing techniques in Fortress 178 were still stuck at the most basic level. After wearing the clothes for some time, the color would start fading. Just as Wang Shenjian had said, the northwest was one of the most suitable places for growing cotton. However, there was a lack of that technology here. All of their focus was instead placed into developing their military industry, as well as trying their best to ensure that everyone had something to eat. So who would have the time to involve themselves with bells and whistles? After Su Xianchu left, Ren Xiaosu, Wang Shenzi, and the others walked out of the building and carefully sized up this legendary fortress. The pedestrians on the street turned to look at them when they saw them, because other than Ren Xiaosu, the group looked a little out of place. Wang Shenjian had also changed into a long dress, but the blue dress did not look like it could be produced here in the fortress. Wang Shenjian said that this blue was called Tiffany blue, and it was a very popular color back in the Central Plains, as a female singer had worn it before. Ren Xiaosu thought there probably wouldn't be celebrity singers in Fortress 178. The women he saw in Fortress 178 were all carrying a pole with baskets on both ends just like the men. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked Wang Shenzi, "How do you think Mr. Zhang will handle the Zone Consortium?" Wang Shenzi raised his head and smiled. "You're hoping that Fortress 178 will help you get your revenge." "That's right," Ren Xiaosu admitted frankly. But if it's not Fortress 178's own decision, I don't want to drag others down with me either. I can still manage a lot of things by myself. Ren Xiaosu thought that if Fortress 178 was unwilling to send in their troops against the Zone Consortium and clear out the obstruction to the trade routes, he would have to infiltrate the Zone Consortium himself. Anything Li Shenton could do, he could probably do as well. Wang Shenzi smiled and said, "Look at these pedestrians on the street." Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. Everyone's taking the food in their homes out with carrying poles. But where are they taking it? Wang Shenzi asked. To sell. Ren Xiaosu said. The farmers live outside the fortress, while these are normal residents, so why would they be selling their food? Wang Shenzi said with a smile, they've gathered up all the food they stored away to donate it to the military of Fortress 178. Why, though? Ren Xiaosu was stunned. He really did not understand military matters. He had encountered an advanced army warfare leadership skill user but did not have a skill duplication scroll on him to learn it at the time. This is Fortress 178's preparation for war. All the food has been handed over to the garrison troops to be allocated during the war, Wang Shenzi explained with a smile. If you've already decided on taking revenge against the Zone Consortium, you can put your mind at ease. If Mr. Zhang hadn't thought over it carefully, he wouldn't have asked me to come to the northwest. He's already made his decision. Fortress 178 sought to sell off their large mineral deposits to make the lives of the fortress residents better and obtain better military armaments as well. As such, they had to open the trade routes. But the Zone Consortium would never allow all this to happen. Why would they allow outsiders to sleep soundly next to their beds? This was the inevitable outcome caused by the growth and development of an organization with a vested interest. In a rundown meeting room in Fortress 178, a group of officers were arguing endlessly around a large sand table. Zhou Yinglong shouted, "I've long disliked the Zone Consortium. I'm sure everyone already knows those old fogies at the Zone Consortium have deployed their weapons and troops to face our Fortress 178. What do you think they intend to do? I don't have to elaborate, right? Everyone understands." Someone said, "When I made a trip to the valley a while ago, I discovered the Qing Consortium was also stirring up trouble there. However, Qing Zhen is not targeting our Fortress 178 in his schemes. All of his people have gone to attack the Yang Consortium, leaving only the Zone Consortium with a presence in the valley. If we want to open the trade routes, it would be best to build it on the path that goes through Mt Dingyuan. Wasn't it a highway before the cataclysm? That would be the fastest route to take. But Mt Dingyuan is still being controlled by the Zone Consortium's bandits, while Mt Guan to its north acts as the Zone Consortium's forward operating base," Su Xianchuo analyzed. "So, even if we don't attack the Zone Consortium directly, we still have to take back control of the front line at Mt Dingyuan and Mt Guan. How do we do that?" Zhou Yinglong replied, "We don't have enough manpower. We can fight, but occupying the territories is a bit of a stretch. How many people would you have to deploy there to guard against the Zone Consortium's raids? And when the Zone Consortium cuts off the retreat route at Mt Dingyuan, the soldiers there will immediately be left to fend for themselves. Just thinking about it makes me despair." "That's right," old Zhou's argument makes sense. "No one takes a long-term defensive position." A burly man said, "The Zone Consortium is right in front of us. Those bastards have become too restless in recent years and are constantly fixated on Fortress 178 being their imaginary enemy. In the past, we stood guard at Fortress 178 to defend against the Western enemies. It seems they've already forgotten all about the kindness that we've shown them." For the whole night, the entire conference room was noisy as everyone chipped in with their opinions. It was heated. Meanwhile, Zhang Jinglan stood next to the sand table and looked quietly at the terrain mapped out on it. The sand table covered the entire southwest and northwest and even included a small area of the central plains. All of a sudden, someone said, but what if the Western enemies come again while we're attacking the Zone Consortium? Everyone started looking at one another. Zhou Yinglong hesitated and said, they haven't been here in 16 years. Wouldn't that be too coincidental? The person who spoke up calmly said, because of the differences in our skin, hair, and ethnicity, our people have never been able to infiltrate their camp. By the same logic, they're also unable to infiltrate our camp. Thus, neither side knows anything that's going on at the other end, so how can you be so sure they won't come? What if it's really that coincidental? Then we'll be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Fortress 178 had not been paying much attention to the Zone Consortium in many years, but it wasn't because they were willing to accept this hyena's insolence right at their doorstep. Rather, they had a more important mission that left them unable to spread their forces too thin. Zhou Yinglong and the others felt a little aggrieved. They had to accept that their mission came first. The Zone Consortium, the Qing Consortium, the Yang Consortium, and even the Central Plains were not required to thank them for it, but a mission was a mission. Suddenly, Zhang Jinglin said, "We will fight." The meeting room fell silent. Everyone could hear each other's breathing. There was a glimmer in the eyes of Zhou Yinglong and the others as their cheeks flushed red. It was the rush of blood they would experience before every big battle. Regardless of the points of view brought up in the meeting room, or how different all of their opinions were, only Zhang Jinglin's words mattered. Once Zhang Jinglin had made his decision, it meant that war was inevitable. At the end of the day, they were just arguing over these two possibilities for the entire afternoon. Zhang Jinglin had already decided after taking into consideration all details. He thought for a moment and said, "There's definitely that risk, but if we don't clear the trade routes, Fortress 178 will only continue weakening. As you all know, we've sent some people disguised as refugees west and discovered that place is becoming more and more prosperous. Meanwhile, we're held back in our current situation with no resources, no technology, and no new talents. We're even running out of clothes to wear. We might control a lot of minds, but they can't turn into our strength." Zhang Jinglin said, "If this goes on, Fortress 178 might not be able to stop our enemies from the west in another 10 years. So we have no choice but to make a change now. We have to survive this disaster before we can talk about the future." Zhang Jinglin had made himself clear. It was not that he did not consider the risks involved, but that with the risks they were facing, fighting the Zone Consortium and opening the trade routes was their best option. Rather than waiting to die, he might as well have a go at it. Zhang Jinglin knew that Fortress 178 was much stronger and resolute than the rumors said, but their current plight was also much more dangerous than the rest of the world imagined. But Zhou Yinglong and this group of rowdy people couldn't care less about Commander Zhang's considerations. As long as Zhang Jinglin gave the word that they were going to fight, they would fight. Whether they won or lost was something to think about in the future. All they had to do now was fight. The conditions at Fortress 178 might not be comparable to others, but this damned group of people were definitely the strongest in their execution of orders. Then Zhang Jinglin said, "Tomorrow, we'll hold a meeting at the same time to discuss our strategy. If you're late, stand and listen as your punishment. You won't be allowed to speak." When the others heard this, they hurriedly guaranteed that no one would be late. They would definitely not drink tonight. Zhang Jinglin added, "Zhou Yinglong, arrange for that young man named Ren Xiaosu to join the Razor Sharp Company under your command. Let him start from the rank of private." The moment he said that, the entire conference room became even quieter than before. It was as though they could not even hear the sound of breathing. They looked like they wanted to ask Zhang Jinglin something, but Zhang Jinglin did not even give them a chance to say anything and walked out of the conference room. When Zhang Jinglin left the room, the officers sitting at the sand table exploded. Was Commander referring to the Razor Sharp Company he used to be in? Apparently, 2 other previous commanders also started in the Razor Sharp Company. Does Commander view that boy as his successor? "Old Zhou, you were the one who brought that boy in. What's up with him?" The razor-sharp company was a very special existence. No one had ever explicitly stipulated that the commander of Fortress 178 needed to serve in the razor-sharp company first. But as it stood, every previous commander had come from there. They were all sent by the previous commander before them to train where it was the most dangerous and then slowly work up the ranks. As the name Razor Sharp Company suggested, it was the most dangerous fighting force to be posted to. They were often tasked to take on the most insurmountable missions, and only those who could survive the Razor Sharp Company would convince the others in Fortress 178. It wasn't about how the Razor Sharp Company was really strong, but that being part of it would put anyone in the most perilous of situations. You would have to spend time in the most dangerous places to know the fate you were putting your soldiers in with the orders you gave. Eventually, after several commanders served their tour of duty, the Razor Sharp Company became an even more special existence. Although no one said anything, everyone knew that whoever suddenly got posted to the Razor Sharp Company was definitely someone the commander paid special attention to. As long as this person could survive and convince the masses, he would go on to become the next commander of Fortress 178. 16 years ago, Zhang Jinglin had once posted a person to join the Razor Sharp Company, but that person perished in the war. And now, he had sent Ren Xiaosu to the unit, and he was someone none of them knew. Zhou Yinglong looked at everyone's burning eyes and felt a little anxious. "What are y'all looking at me for? I've only known him for a couple of days. That kid's also a refugee and has even lived in the valley. He looks rather soft and weak and is injured too, but I'm not sure how he got injured. But from the looks of it, he doesn't look like he can fight well, so how is he gonna survive in the Razor Sharp Company?" Someone added, "The commander wasn't exactly a fighter back then either, but that's not a problem as long as he's ruthless enough." Someone chuckled. Commander was a medic at that time who wasn't even willing to fire a shot. How can you compare them? Why don't you talk about how many people Commander saved back then? Su Xianchu was starting to get unhappy. How can you say that about my bro? How can my bro possibly be weak? When we went on an expedition into the Jing Mountains, it was all thanks to him that we managed to get out of there safely. Zhou Yinglong was surprised before saying, "Oh, that's right. Ren Xiaosu is old Su's bro. We should ask him for details." Su Xianchu, "You punk, why weren't you more upfront about it? If you know things, tell us." A big man chuckled and said, "Hurry up and fill us in. He's a refugee from the town outside Stronghold 113. Someone in the stronghold wanted to go to the Jing Mountains and was trying to find a guide in town. In the end, everyone said that if they wanted to go to the Jing Mountains, Ren Xiaosu was the only one who could take them there," Su Xianchu recalled. "The team went looking for him first, but he pretended to be ignorant as he didn't want to go. Later on, it seemed like they offered him something before he agreed to bring them. Oh right, I think he was Commander Zhang's student too, as Commander Zhang was the teacher at the town school at that time. He specified Ren Xiaosu as his substitute teacher after that because he wanted him to take over running the school." Everyone looked at each other. He was supposed to take over the school? But now Commander Zhang was planning to let Ren Xiaosu take over at Fortress 178? Although everyone would not defy Zhang Jinglin's wishes, it would still depend on whether Ren Xiaosu was qualified enough to take over Fortress 178. If Ren Xiaosu could not convince the masses, even Zhang Jinglin would not force it ahead. This was the usual practice at Fortress 178. Even if you were given a herd of ferocious beasts, you needed to be able to control them. That was the logic behind it. Everyone felt that Zhang Jinglin's arrangement was too sudden, as Ren Xiaosu was still an outsider and no one knew him yet. Someone asked Su Xianchu, "What's Ren Xiaosu like?" "There's no question about his morals," Su Xianchu said, "in any case, I trust him." Someone asked Su Xianchu again, "Is your bro also a supernatural being? What kind of power does he have?" These words immediately stunned Su Xianchu. Back in the Jing Mountains, he could carry an adult man with just one arm. He must be a supernatural being, but I don't really know what power he has. The group of burly men in the conference room were stunned. You call yourself his bro when you don't even know what his power is. You serious? Regarding the matter of a young man named Ren Xiaosu being shoved into the razor-sharp company, everyone in the military of Fortress 178 found out overnight. This made everyone quite curious about what Ren Xiaosu was like. To the burly men of Fortress 178, this was clearly an important matter as it involved someone Zhang Jinglin regarded as his successor. When Su Xianchu was fast-tracked for promotion, everyone thought Su Xianchu stood a chance of being considered and wondered if the tradition of the fortress commander emerging from the razor-sharp company would finally be broken. But from the looks of it, it seemed like Su Xianchu had not been chosen by Commander Zhang as a candidate to be his successor. It seemed that tradition would still remain tradition. Rumor had it that Ren Xiaosu was a supernatural being. However, it did not seem like he would be very good at fighting with that weak and frail body. Everyone was a little curious as to whether Ren Xiaosu could even survive the war. The next morning, when Ren Xiaosu walked out of the building where his group was staying, he saw a group of burly men squatting on the sidewalk. The moment he appeared, the group of men lowered their voices and whisper shouted, "He's out! That's him! Why's he so skinny? Can he even take a few punches? He's not gonna get killed the moment he steps onto the battlefield, right?" Ren Xiaosu immediately put his guard up. Were they here to find trouble with him? Was this group of burly men blocking the way to seek a fight with him? Although his injuries had not fully healed yet, he was not afraid if anyone tried to find trouble with him. But once these burly men saw Ren Xiaosu, they retreated. Ren Xiaosu was left standing there in a daze, not understanding what was going on. Zhang Jinglin had not discussed anything with him prior. In fact, Zhang Jinglin's arrangements might not be a good thing for Ren Xiaosu at all. That was because once Ren Xiaosu joined the razor-sharp company, everyone would watch his every move, and any mistakes he made would be scrutinized even harder. The moment he showed any signs of cowardice, everyone would think he was not qualified enough. Everyone would look at him through a magnifying glass to see if he deserved to be so highly regarded by the commander. And what made him so highly regarded? But Zhang Jinglin did not care about that. He only told Ren Xiaosu that if he wanted to take revenge and personally bring down the Zone Consortium, he would have to first join Fortress 178's military. Ren Xiaosu agreed to it, of course. Then Zhang Jinglin asked him what kinds of troops he was planning to join and offered him the chance to choose for himself. Ren Xiaosu answered he would like to go wherever it was the most dangerous. Whichever unit could kill the most enemies, he would go there. Zhang Jinglin asked him if he wanted to reconsider it, but Ren Xiaosu said he had already made his decision and would not go back on his word. Revenge was the only motivation that pushed Ren Xiaosu to go to Fortress 178. Zhang Jinglin smiled and said, "All right, I'll arrange for you to be posted where it's the most dangerous then." At the time, Ren Xiaosu felt that something was going to happen, but he did not know what exactly was going on. In the afternoon, Su Xianchu came over and told him to report to the razor-sharp company. This company was going to be under the command of Zhou Yinglong, the commander of the Forward Strike Battalion. When Ren Xiaosu was told, he did not think much of it since it was his own request. But Su Xianchu reminded him repeatedly, "Xiaosu, it's said that the razor-sharp company comes back with less than 10% of its troops after every war, and it's not even uncommon for everyone to get wiped out, so you must be careful when you're there. After you return safely, my future in Fortress 178 will be in your hands." These words absolutely confused Ren Xiaosu. Su Xianchu drove Ren Xiaosu to the west side of Fortress 178 where the razor-sharp company was garrisoned. As they drove in, Ren Xiaosu realized that all the soldiers in the military base stopped whatever they were doing and turned to look at him. Zhou Yinglong was already waiting inside. He glanced at Su Xianchu before chuckling and saying, "Old Su, go on back now. It'll be fine to leave him here with us. Su Xianchu raised an eyebrow. We don't even know if you'll survive this war or not. Zhou Yinglong spat and said angrily, stop jinxing me. I won't die even after you've died. Su Xianchu sneered and said, do you have a cauldron like I do? Zhou Yinglong did not say anything else. Just as Ren Xiaosu had guessed, Zhou Yinglong was a supernatural being as well. Otherwise, he would not be in such a dangerous place like the Forward Strike Battalion. After all, it wasn't like there were a lot of supernatural beings in Fortress 178 either. But Zhou Yinglong knew his own power was not strong as Su Xianchu's. Everyone had witnessed the might of Su Xianchu's cauldron before. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu realized the soldiers in Fortress 178 were really casual when talking about death. It was as common as eating. There was not much fear in their eyes. He wondered what kind of environment created such a group of soldiers. Even in spring, Fortress 178 was very cold. Sometimes, it would even start snowing by August or September out here, as more than half the year would be spent in wintry conditions. After bidding farewell to Su Xianchu, Zhou Yinglong led Ren Xiaosu inside the military base. As they walked, he said, our Forward Strike Battalion has always been a place where we fight the tough battles. You might not know it since you came from outside the fortress, nor do I know if you've ever experienced war before, but I just want to warn you so you don't go onto the battlefield and get caught off guard. Ren Xiaosu said calmly, don't worry, Battalion Commander, I won't. Since he had been posted to this unit, he was someone's subordinate. Naturally, he would have to obey his orders. Ren Xiaosu was not surprised that Zhou Yinglong would say that either, so there was no need for him to deliberately talk back. Zhou Yinglong glanced at him and continued, I heard old Su mention you before. I know you've killed people before and that you're a supernatural being. However, bullets have no eyes on the battlefield. Even supernatural beings aren't that lucky. There's still a difference between war and killing people. Zhou Yinglong was very clear. Although Ren Xiaosu was very powerful, war was a totally different matter. War was like an avalanche, and even supernatural beings could not defy the force of nature. It was good to not be scared, but one couldn't be overconfident either. In the makeup of troops at Fortress 178, there were 30 people in each platoon. Each company consisted of 4 platoons, so a normal company would generally have about 120 soldiers each. But the razor-sharp company was a reinforced company. They also had their own cooks, quartermasters, radio operators, and medics. The company commander was a captain who was assisted by a non-commissioned officer. The reason the razor-sharp company was so well equipped was so they would have the ability to fight as an independent force. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, Battalion Commander Zhou, is the razor-sharp company really that strong? Zhou Yinglong gave it some thought. They aren't necessarily as strong as you might imagine. They're just a bunch of drifters who've gathered together. Normally, they're real slackers in their daily lives, but they've never lost once in a military exercise. They're well versed in digging up electrical cables and can fight for a position on the battlefield as well. They're really as shameless as you can get. Only Stronghold 111 where Qingzhen was located would have more fighting forces garrisoned there. But it was different for Fortress 178. Since this was their only base, practically half of the fortress would be garrisoned by troops. Furthermore, the residents of the fortress and those living outside it, as well as some of the scattered settlements in the area, served the military as well. But unlike other strongholds, there wasn't a distinction between the refugees and residents of Fortress 178. Those who worked beyond the walls would even receive additional subsidies for being stationed outside. In winter, those who lived outside the fortress would be allowed to enter the fortress with a valid pass. Of course, approval for these passes was still relatively strict. The total military strength of Fortress 178 reached up to 80,000 troops, and they were an entirely first-class fighting force as well. Meanwhile, the Zone Consortium's army claimed to have as many as 200,000 soldiers. The difference between their military strength was too great. But it was also perhaps because of this significant difference that the Zone Consortium had become so daring in recent years, destroying the main traffic arteries connecting Fortress 178 and the outside world. But Ren Xiaosu realized the burly men at Fortress 178 did not seem to mind the stark contrast in their military strength. According to Su Xianchu, the number of soldiers was no longer the key to victory in modern warfare. The intelligence, technology, courage, and experience of the army was what mattered. Although the Zone Consortium had many soldiers, they were all recruits who had been drafted into the military, with many of them being refugees. Once they were deployed onto the battlefield, these recruits would be blindsided by their inexperience. The difference between veterans and recruits was like the distance between the heavens and the earth. Ren Xiaosu felt that Zhang Jinglan was not a reckless person. Since Zhang Jinglan had decided to start the war, he must be confident he could win it. By this point, Zhou Yinglong led him to where the Razor Sharp Company's camp was. The members of the Razor Sharp Company had already been waiting at the entrance for a long time. They all had their arms around each other's shoulders as they started sizing up Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu was also wearing the Razor Sharp Company's uniform that had been delivered to him by Su Xianchu. The patch on his arm was a bayonet, representing the Razor Sharp Company. Zhou Yinglong said softly, "It's quite different here in the northwest compared to the south. If this were the south, everyone in the military would probably treat you courteously if Commander Zhang assigned you to the Razor Sharp Company. But here in the northwest, we're all curious to see whether you're really qualified to join us." Ren Xiaosu was puzzled. What did he mean? All he wanted was to seek revenge by being assigned to the most dangerous unit. That was it. Could it be that it was extremely difficult to join the Razor Sharp Company? Zhou Yinglong did not continue speaking. He said to the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company who had surrounded them, "Why have you all gathered around instead of packing your stuff? You'll be the first ones to set out for the battlefield early next morning. I'm hereby giving you half a month to take Mt Ding Yuan. Those bandits at Mt Ding Yuan are nothing. We'll beat them as soon as we arrive." Someone asked, "Battalion Commander, is the person next to you Ren Xiaosu?" "Yes, he is." Zhou Yinglong said, "Remember, don't get too carried away." When Ren Xiaosu heard Zhou Yinglong say "don't get too carried away," he felt like something was wrong. Were they about to put him in his place or something? And why did it seem like he had suddenly become a celebrity here in Fortress 178? But as soon as Zhou Yinglong finished speaking, he turned around and left, leaving no chance for Ren Xiaosu to ask any questions. The 180 or so members of the Razor Sharp Company came up to Ren Xiaosu, including the Chow Squad who were holding kitchen knives. Ren Xiaosu was puzzled. How was this a fucking military camp? Why did it feel like this was a seedy shop operated by bandits? But Ren Xiaosu was only here to get his revenge on the Zone Consortium by killing them. All he wanted to do was fight the Zone Consortium on the battlefield, so he didn't need to establish a good relationship with these soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company. Ren Xiaosu lifted his shirt and exposed the wound on his right side. He said, "Are y'all gonna hit a wounded person?" But to Ren Xiaosu's surprise, these thugs standing across from him just laughed and said, "Don't worry, we won't be too heavy-handed." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. They were even fucking okay with beating up the wounded. A wise man did not fight when the odds were against him. As soon as the voice trailed off, Ren Xiaosu turned around and ran away. If he wasn't fighting to kill, taking on more than 100 people proved too much for Ren Xiaosu to handle. Moreover, he still had not recovered from his internal injuries. The thugs of the Razor Sharp Company roared, "Get him!" Whenever a recruit joined the company, they would be put in their place by the veterans. If they couldn't be beaten into submission, what if they disobeyed their orders later on? Of course, this was a hugely pretentious rationale to give. The true reason was that these veterans were bored and had nothing better to do. As the saying went, no discord, no concord. No one would bear any grudges after joining the company for a while. However, something odd happened today. This recruit turned tail and ran away. But where could he run off to? The forward strike battalion's base was only so big, after all, and surely he had to come back to sleep tonight, right? But the crux was that Ren Xiaosu ran away so fast he shook them off in an instant. As the large group of people chased after Ren Xiaosu, they saw him quickly slipping into the barracks in another area. The men of the razor-sharp company dived in right after him. When Ren Xiaosu entered the barracks, he saw a dozen odd people drying their blankets in the sun. He rushed up to one of them and punched that person to the ground. The razor-sharp company is invincible. The burly northwestern men who were drying their blankets were all stunned and could not react for several seconds. One of the men grew angry. We still haven't fucking settled the score with the razor-sharp company for the previous military exercise, and now they've actually picked a fight with us. Then he shouted into the barracks, "Second company, get out here now. We have a fight on our hands." When the thugs of the razor-sharp company entered this area, they saw the members of Second Company running out of their barracks. The razor-sharp company's commander shouted, "Old Li, step aside. It's none of your business," but when Second Company's commander Li looked at his comrade who had been punched to the ground, he said, "Step aside? Fuck you. Brothers, get them." The razor-sharp company's commander also turned furious. "Hey, sore loser." When old Li heard this, he got even angrier and threw a punch. It only took a few seconds for everything to happen. No one had time to think. But if they had had the time, it would certainly not have ended up like this. Zhou Yinglong frowned as he watched from a distance. What the fuck was with this? On the first day of Ren Xiaosu's arrival, the razor-sharp company and Second Company had immediately descended into a mass brawl. More than 300 people were fighting one another, and some of them even had their shirt collars torn off in the scuffle. It was very common for people to pick a fight with one another within the military bases of Fortress 178. In most situations, the commanding officer would usually let the soldiers fight all they wanted. It was like these tough men in the fortress thought that being a little bloodthirsty was a prerequisite to them becoming soldiers. But how on earth did this fight escalate into a brawl? "This is way too fucking ominous," Zhou Yinglong said. Ren Xiaosu, who was standing next to him, also lamented, "Yet." Zhou Yinglong spun around. "Since when were you standing next to me?" "Reserved," Ren Xiaosu replied, "I just got here a moment ago." Zhou Yinglong's words still held a lot of weight in the forward strike battalion. It seemed that the two companies were also very used to this. Even though they were fighting, the two sides immediately stopped once Zhou Yinglong stepped in. The razor-sharp company turned around and ran back to their own barracks. Military orders were not to be taken lightly. If they were asked to assemble in 10 minutes, they would have to do it within 10 minutes and not a second later. Before they left, the members of the razor-sharp company saw Ren Xiaosu standing next to Zhou Yinglong unscathed. When they thought about what had just happened, they nearly vomited blood. It wasn't until this moment that the Second Company soldier who was beaten up at the beginning started slowly getting up off the ground. When he saw Ren Xiaosu, he shouted, "He was the one who hit me just now," and he even yelled, "The razor-sharp company is invincible at me." Ren Xiaosu said in seriousness, "You've got the wrong person." Zhou Yinglong raised his eyebrows and told Ren Xiaosu, "I want you to assemble with everyone as well." Ren Xiaosu replied, "Yes, sir." Then he ran towards the razor-sharp company's barracks. When he entered the razor-sharp company's camp, the razor-sharp company was already standing in a block formation with their field packs on their backs. Ren Xiaosu said, "Recruit Ren Xiaosu reporting in." The 180-odd men from the razor-sharp company looked at Ren Xiaosu speechlessly. The company commander was so angry he smiled. "Good on ya, Ren Xiaosu. You're the only one in Fortress 178 who's capable of making our razor-sharp company look like dumbass. Amazing." Ren Xiaosu said politely, but I'm also part of our razor-sharp company. The company commander barked, get your ass in formation and fall in with first platoon. I'll teach you a lesson after the war is over. The company commander looked at the razor-sharp company that had assembled in a block formation and was about to lecture them. However, the men standing before him all looked bruised and swollen, while their uniforms were also in tatters. One of the soldiers' noses was still even bleeding. However, he did not fidget or wipe the blood off as he was currently standing in formation. When the company commander was greeted by this sight, his heart shattered. What the fuck did they do to deserve this? Zhou Yinglong walked over while humming a little ditty. The company commander said to him, reporting in, Battalion Commander, Razor Sharp Company has assembled. Total strength, 184. Present strength, 184. End of report, sir. Zhou Yinglong nodded as he looked at the Razor Sharp Company in the block formation. He snapped, look at the state you're in. You've got 60 more men than second company, but why does it seem like you're all useless? Didn't y'all do really good during the exercise, and you even captured our command center too? Where's that arrogance now, et? As he spoke, Zhou Yinglong stood in front of the razor-sharp company and started laughing. Ren Xiaosu stood in formation and thought to himself, just by looking at the way Zhou Yinglong leads his soldiers, he's probably not an ordinary person either. Zhou Yinglong continued, we also don't have enough uniforms to go around at our fortress, so I wonder if y'all will be mocked when you step on the battlefield wearing your current attire? Zhang Xiaoman, I hope you haven't forgotten that you've pledged to take MT Ding Yuan within half a month. Alright, time for y'all to set off. The Razor Sharp Company's commander stood at attention and yelled, Battalion Commander, don't worry. If we don't take MT Ding Yuan within half a month, I'll commit suicide. As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company standing in block formation roared, Battalion Commander, don't worry. We'll win the opening battle. Only at this moment did Ren Xiaosu finally feel some bloodlust from this group of thugs. Earlier, they were thinking of beating up a wounded person. Their behavior was too immoral. After Zhou Yinglong left the barracks again, Zhang Xiaoman loosened up. He looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, good fucking job, kid. You've made our razor sharp company lose all honor. Ren Xiaosu said softly, yes, sir, yes. Jiao Xiao Chen. Zhang Xiaoman called over first platoon's commander. Ren Xiaosu will be assigned to your platoon from now on, so keep an eye on him. If he disobeys any orders, beat him to death. Jiao Xiao Chen muttered, Captain, you saw how fast he ran just now, right? Even if we want to beat him up, we might not even be able to catch him. Cut the crap. We're setting off. Zhang Xiaoman turned to Ren Xiaosu and said, now that you've joined the Razor Sharp Company, be prepared to suffer. I don't know how you lived in the past. You might be used to eating well and never having to sleep in the wilderness, but from today onwards, know that the good days of the past are over. Ren Xiaosu did not reply. He would simply have to prove he could handle it. The Forward Strike Battalion was the advance guard of Fortress 178. They not only had to capture cities and territories, but also played a part in verifying if the mapping of the battlefield was accurate. They would then report any intel back to headquarters to guide the engineering battalion in their bridge building and road paving missions to establish a forward operating base. The armor and artillery could only reach the zone consortium after the bridges, roads, and FOB had been set up properly. And the Razor Sharp Company was the advance guard of the Forward Strike Battalion. They would be the first to face and overcome any difficulties. It was not without reason that all of the previous candidates for the role of Fortress Commander were trained in the Razor Sharp Company. If they did not gain experience with the toughest company, how could they possibly become good commanders? This way of setting an example had carried on to this day. As such, all the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company were expecting even more from Ren Xiaosu. This person could end up becoming the commander of Fortress 178 in the future, but was he up to it? 10 military transport trucks were assigned to the razor-sharp company by Zhou Yinglong. They weren't only used for transporting people. They also transported heavy machine guns, mortars, and other firearms. If they wanted to capture Mt. Dingyuan without this equipment, that would be a pipe dream. After getting into the vehicles, the company commander, Zhang Xiaoman, was still analyzing the map in his hands. There's a group of bandits holding Mt. Dingyuan, but it's hard to be sure at this moment that there won't be any of Zone Consortium's regulars mixed in among them. So we've gotta be careful when we attack them. Ren Xiaosu was also sitting in the same vehicle as the company commander. He quite agreed with Zhang Xiaoman that they definitely could not treat the bandits at Mt. Dingyuan and Mt. Guan as normal bandits. Zhang Xiaoman continued, "We don't have much time. There might still be a spring on Mt. Dingyuan, so it's not feasible to cut off their water supply. Any of you have any good ideas?" Zhang Xiaoman looked around for someone to offer a suggestion, but no one said a thing. In the corner, Ren Xiaosu also sat with his eyes closed without saying a word. Zhang Xiaoman's gaze fell on Ren Xiaosu. "You look like you have a lot of ideas. Tell me, how should we fight this battle?" "Just fight," Ren Xiaosu said. Since he had never been to Mt. Dingyuan before, he didn't even know what the terrain there looked like. So how could he think of a strategy? Zhang Xiaoman scorned, "The bandits might even be armed with heavy machine guns, mortars, and RPGs. Do you know how many people will die if we launch a head-on attack? Do you think you are like Su Xianchu, who has that invulnerable shadow with a black cauldron, and that you can simply force your way through the battlefield?" Ren Xiaosu's mouth twitched. "I'm just a private, so I'll obey your orders." Zhang Xiaoman nodded. "That's the correct attitude. So if they attacked Mt. Dingyuan, they would have to face the threat from Mt. Guan at the same time." When the convoy was about to leave Fortress 178, someone suddenly stopped the convoy from the front. It turned out that Wang Shenzi and Wang Shenjian were both waiting at the east gate. Zhang Xiaoman jumped out of the truck and asked, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Wang Shenjian said, "Ren Xiaosu is in your company, right? We learned he would be heading out to the front line today after speaking to Commander Zhang. We're just planning to bid him farewell, so we won't really delay your journey." Looking at Wang Shenjian's appearance, Zhang Xiaoman realized she was obviously one of the people from the Central Plains. He said unhappily, "When the troops are setting off for war, how can they be asked to wait just because someone wants to say goodbye? Get out of the way already. He's a soldier of my razor-sharp company now, so I won't allow him to meet you too." Zhang Xiaoman was already a little unhappy to begin with. How could his troops be stopped in their journey over such a trivial matter? "What the hell?" Wang Shenjian said with a smile, "I'm sorry, we won't say goodbye to him then. Can you hand this gift to him? Let him know that we'll also be leaving Fortress 178 in 3 days. When we return to the Central Plains, we'll definitely help him to find his friend named Li Shenton." All right." Zhang Xiaoman waved them off impatiently. "I'll hand it to him." Then Zhang Xiaoman jumped back up into the truck and quickly led the convoy through Fortress 178's gate. The copper bell behind them at the end of that long road stood at the center of the fortress unchanged. A group of soldiers watched Wang Shenjian, who was getting further and further away, and muttered, "How enviable." At the moment, Wang Shenjian was still waving goodbye at the convoy. Meanwhile, Wang Shenzi smiled throughout without a word. Zhang Xiaoman handed the present to Ren Xiaosu and said, "During wartime, you shouldn't be in a relationship. There's only life and death to think about in war, understand?" Ren Xiaosu did not reply. He took the box and opened it. He discovered it was a box of pea cakes, took one out, and stuffed it into his mouth. Then he gave the rest of the cakes to Zhang Xiaoman and said, "Y'all can share it." Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. How can you let us have the snacks when it was given to you by a girl? Kid, what are you thinking? Ren Xiaosu stayed silent for a moment before saying, it tastes bad. Zhang Xiaoman was speechless. The group of soldiers around him snatched the snacks from Zhang Xiaoman's hands and said, if he doesn't want them, let us have them. It's so nice to have a girl send you something to eat, yet you're still being picky. Ren Xiaosu was sitting in the corner. He knew his relationship with Wang Shenjian was not what the soldiers thought. They had only known each other for a little more than 10 days. It hadn't even been a month yet. Perhaps Wang Shenzi felt he would be useful in the future, so he quickly expressed his good intentions to him while they were still here. But no matter what, Ren Xiaosu would not trust these friends he had only known for a little more than 10 days. As for what would happen after Wang Shenzi found Li Shenton, he did not care. Judging by what Li Shenton and Si Loren were capable of, Li Shenton could definitely get away unscathed even if Wang Shenzi had ulterior motives. But when he tasted the pea cake, he was reminded of Yang Xiaojun. He wondered where that cap-wearing girl was now. All of them probably thought he was dead. Even Ren Xiaosu himself did not think that he had any hopes of survival at that time. Before he could get revenge, Ren Xiaosu did not intend to get involved with other people. He would just treat them as passers-by in his life. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu said, Company Commander, why don't we attack MT Guan head-on instead? Are you fucking crazy? Zhang Xiaoman said with his mouth full of pea cake. My pledge was to attack MT Ding Yuan. Also, it's more difficult to attack MT Guan than MT Ding Yuan. Ren Xiaosu said calmly, didn't you say that we have to prevent the reinforcements at MT Guan from coming to support MT Ding Yuan during our attack? So even if we attack MT Guan, there should also be reinforcements coming from MT Ding Yuan, right? Zhang Xiaoman pondered what he said. Then he realized Ren Xiaosu was implying that they should pretend to attack MT Guan first, then lay in ambush to pick off the reinforcements from MT Ding Yuan when they headed to MT Guan. This suggestion suited the razor-sharp company's soldiers' taste. After all, positional defense still played the part of the meat grinder in modern warfare. The officers of Fortress 178 were required to learn military knowledge during weekdays. Even though these men did not like studying, they still enjoyed reading case studies of wars preserved from before the cataclysm. One of the case studies detailing a battle for an airport perfectly explained what modern positional warfare was about. The attacking forces were 10 times the number of the defensive troops, and they also possessed 122 mm howitzers and attack choppers. But even in those circumstances, it still took 3 months for the attackers to take the airport. During the battle, both sides suffered countless casualties. This case study proved that as long as one side did not have a fully mechanized force and powerful aerial strikes they could depend on, positional warfare had to be taken seriously. Whatever equipment they had, their enemies would have as well. In fact, the defenders would have also planted landmines, booby traps, and other forms of traps. Bombarding the target with firepower required a huge price and intel on the enemy's firepower deployment, earned by sacrificing lives. If it weren't for Ren Xiaosu, who had given the defensive deployment map to Qingzhen, it would have taken Qingzhen a very long time to take position 313. At that time, the deadline set by the Qing Consortium's headquarters was only 1 month. A lot of people thought the era of positional warfare was no longer applicable in modern warfare, but that wasn't the case at all. The theory of the omnipotence of missiles had still not reached full omnipotence yet. In the case study Zhang Xiaoman and the others had read, the positions that were quickly conquered were bombarded by the Air Force. But now it was those flying beasts in the sky that were the overlords of air power. Humanity's planes were too fragile in comparison. The razor-sharp company was currently up against 2 bandit lairs. Although they could call for supporting fire to bombard MT Ding Yuan and MT Guan, what do they do after that? How were they going to fight the remainder of the Zone Consortium's troops? It was just 2 fucking bandit lairs. The real battle had not even started yet. Jiang Xiaoman pondered things for a while. But we might not be able to handle it when we get attacked on both sides. Ren Xiaosu asked, even if we don't attack this way, we'll still have to face attacks from both sides, right? That's true. Jiang Xiaoman said, but what if the reinforcements from MT Dingyuan don't come to support them if there isn't enough pressure on MT Guan? Ren Xiaosu said firmly, then we'll put the pressure on them. Just leave it to me. Will you pledge to that? Jiang Xiaoman asked in surprise. Yes. The soldiers of the razor-sharp company in the truck suddenly felt something was wrong. They were still worried that a recruit like Ren Xiaosu would have his legs turned to rubber once he was on the battlefield. But why did it seem like Ren Xiaosu was more hellbent on seeking battle than they were? Wasn't Ren Xiaosu rumored to be a supernatural being? No one knew where he got the confidence to talk big. Jiang Xiaoman believed it would be harder to take MT Guan, but Ren Xiaosu did not think so. That was because some of the bandits had already died in the terrible earthquake when Yan Liuyuan's curse hit them. He was guessing those bandits must have come from MT Guan. At that time, they were in the vicinity of MT Kalei, and the nearest bandit lairs were at MT Tangwang and MT Guan. However, the bandits at MT Tangwang had already been recruited by Wang Kongyang. So the only possibility was that those bandits were from MT Guan. However, Ren Xiaosu did not mention a word about this. It seemed that Fortress 178 did not know about the battle in the wilderness yet, as the Zone Consortium was still locking out the news. Fortress 178 was between 500 and 600 kilometers away from that battlefield at that time. No matter how massive the explosions and firepower were, no one would hear anything if they were in the fortress. But Ren Xiaosu knew that if it were really as he had guessed, MT Guan was definitely not going to be as difficult to overcome as they had thought. Instead, it would be much easier to attack than MT Dingyuan. The razor-sharp company started behaving like mice when they suddenly abandoned their trucks and moved in the gullies with their guns and artillery supplies. By lying low in the daytime and only becoming active at night, they were trying their best not to get discovered by the enemy. When they were resting in the shadows of the gullies during the day, Jiang Xiaoman said to Ren Xiaosu, although I don't know what your superpower is, I'll still believe you since you said you could put pressure on MT Guan. But you better not tell me that you can't do it when we get there. If you can't do it, I'll be sure to shoot you regardless of who you are. Ren Xiaosu did not reply to him as he cradled his automatic rifle and lay against the gully with his eyes closed. Everyone was slowly eating their field rations. As they were now secretly trying to enter the valley, they were not allowed to set up cooking fires. But Jiang Xiaoman and the others were surprised by how Ren Xiaosu could bear more hardship than they could. While everyone was resting, they would always require rotations for sentry duty. The other soldiers were so sleepy they kept complaining, but Ren Xiaosu never once grumbled about anything. If he was asked to perform his sentry duty, he would just do it. He was also fine with it when he had to perform his duty for a little longer. Jiang Xiaoman observed and realized that Ren Xiaosu was really serious and responsible when he was on sentry duty. The razor-sharp company's commander muttered, as expected of someone chosen by the commander. Everyone was expecting something more from Ren Xiaosu, not because they had something against him, but because when they found out he could become the next commander, they wondered, in what way is he better than me? Why should he be considered as a candidate for the role of commander? Meanwhile, Ren Xiaosu not only had to perform sentry duty, but he also took turns with everyone to carry the heavy machine guns and mortars during their march. The machine guns were really burdensome, and the mortars were only slightly lighter at about 15 kilograms each. Although it was very uncomfortable to carry them for long distances, it was still within acceptable limits. Meanwhile, the 12.7 mm heavy machine guns weighed 25 kilograms each, and they even had to carry their own rucksacks too. The route they had to take to get to MT Guan and MT Dingyuan was still at least another 100 kilometers away, and the terrain was difficult to traverse. Some soldiers even got abrasions on their shoulders after carrying the weapons. But Ren Xiaosu never once complained. Ren Xiaosu looked very skinny at the moment because his strength and dexterity were balanced. At the beginning, Zhang Xiaoman deliberately made things difficult for Ren Xiaosu by making him suffer. But to Zhang Xiaoman's surprise, Ren Xiaosu was not careless at all when carrying the machine gun, even though he looked thinner than all of them. He even volunteered to shoulder some of the burden for his comrades. This was just how it was in the army. If you were tough and capable, you would get respected. If you were a weakling, you would get looked down on. In just these few days of their march through the wilderness, everyone's impression of Ren Xiaosu changed for the better. This kid was really tough and capable. The soldiers of the razor-sharp company vaguely thought to themselves, he's too not bad after all. But it did not mean he had fully been accepted. Whether he was qualified to be the next commander would not depend only on physical strength and perseverance. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoman did some calculations and said, Mt Guan is around 30 kilometers away from Mount Dingyuan. If the bandits on Mt Guan seek reinforcements from Mt Dingyuan, those bandits will probably arrive in about half an hour. We have to dig trenches and set up an ambush on the road in advance. Or else we might not be able to defeat those fucking bandits. Ren Xiaosu said, this gully is already a natural trench. That's true. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly asked, are you really confident in putting pressure on Mt Guan and forcing them to call for reinforcements? Ren Xiaosu said calmly, I already pledged to do so. The signalers from the Razor Sharp Company were constantly in touch with the Forward Strike Battalion behind them. The Forward Strike Battalion had set off the day after the Razor Sharp Company had departed. At this moment, they should be 60 kilometers behind them. However, the Forward Strike Battalion's target was neither Mt Guan nor Mt Dingyuan. They had to set up a defensive line in the north to prevent the Zone Consortium's counterattack on the south after they successfully took Mt Guan and Mt Dingyuan. Of Fortress 178's military corps, other than a full brigade that was tasked with staying behind to defend the fortress, the rest were preparing to head out to the battlefield. Ren Xiaosu asked, Captain, does the Zone Consortium really have 200,000 soldiers? Zhang Xiaoman said with a sneer, how dare the Zone Consortium claim to have 200,000 soldiers when their territory is so small? Oh, wait, if we include the refugees and private troops they recruited into their forces, it seems there might really be 200,000 of them. But our Fortress 178 can fight down to our last soldier. The Zone Consortium's so-called brigade would probably lose all their morale once a few hundred of their soldiers get killed. Only then did it dawn on Ren Xiaosu that the Zone Consortium was just like the Li Consortium. Not only did they draft the incapable refugees, but they recruited the incompetent private troops into their forces as well. If the Qing Consortium did the same, Ren Xiaosu estimated they could come up with more than 400,000 troops. But what was the use of such troops? Ren Xiaosu asked, then how many real troops does the Zone Consortium have? About 90,000. Zhang Xiaoman said, but this was intel from last year. Ren Xiaosu nodded. He suddenly felt that this battle was no longer that difficult to fight even though Fortress 178 only had 75,000 troops on the battlefield. But why did it feel like Fortress 178 was not that strong? Was he getting a false impression? Ren Xiaosu felt that there was something strange about this. If Fortress 178 only had these fighting forces, even if they could remain standing here in the northwest, it would definitely not be enough to awe a real consortium. Besides, Luolan had wanted to kill Zhang Jinglin, but Qing Zhen refused. Did Qing Zhen allow Zhang Jinglin to return to the northwest so he could keep the Zone Consortium in check, or was it because he wanted Zhang Jinglin to continue keeping guard for the humans in the interior and prevent another foreign war from breaking out? Perhaps it could be for both reasons too. Ren Xiaosu felt that Qing Zhen might not be that fanatic who was only obsessed with fighting wars. At the beginning, Ren Xiaosu kept a very low profile and carried the heavy machine gun with the other soldiers. 2 people were on a gun, rotating pairs every 3 hours. But as he kept walking, Ren Xiaosu felt it was very inconvenient for two people to carry the machine gun since they had to synchronize their pace and footsteps. As such, he simply had his teammate let go and carried the gun by himself. Zhang Xiaoman had thought Ren Xiaosu was overestimating himself. How could he carry that thing weighing 25 kilograms on top of his field pack all by himself? He might be able to carry it for a while, but try carrying it for 3 hours. But everyone eventually realized it was unusual. Ren Xiaosu was actually able to carry the fucking heavy machine gun weighing 25 kilograms by himself effortlessly, and he was not even panting. 1 hour later, Zhang Xiaoman and the others thought Ren Xiaosu would already be tired. However, Ren Xiaosu switched to carrying the machine gun in his other hand and continued carrying it forward. 2 hours later, Zhang Xiaoman and the others thought that surely he would be tired by now. However, Ren Xiaosu simply switched back to carrying it with his previous hand like it was not heavy at all. After 3 hours, Ren Xiaosu passed the heavy machine gun to his comrades who would be taking over and said, "It's your turn now." This time, everyone from the razor-sharp company was secretly surprised. Was Ren Xiaosu a beast? Fortunately, they did not end up fighting Ren Xiaosu in the military base. With his strength, he could probably kill others with just a punch, right? Zhang Xiaoman was a little jealous. Is this what it means to be a supernatural being? All of a sudden, Ren Xiaosu heard the voice from the palace in his mind say, "Quest, help your comrades lessen their burden." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. He had not received a quest from the palace for nearly a month. He wondered what kind of reward it would be this time. When they were about to arrive at the specified location on the 4th day, Ren Xiaosu purposely chose a time when his comrades had become extremely tired to help them carry their supplies. He would carry them for a while before letting them carry the supplies again. His comrades were all moved to tears. Ren Xiaosu was such a good guy, and he was really helpful to everyone too. When Ren Xiaosu took their boxes of supplies, everyone thanked him for it. Ren Xiaosu thought to himself that even though the razor-sharp company's soldiers were like thugs, they were rather sincere in their gratitude. He actually managed to receive gratitude tokens from all of their thanks. During his previous battle, Ren Xiaosu had used his explosive poker cards like they did not cost a thing. So he only had around 100 gratitude tokens left from the originally 900-odd gratitude tokens he had accumulated, and now, Ren Xiaosu would have to be exceptionally hardworking as he started earning the gratitude tokens all over again. Although Zhang Xiaoman was the company commander, he was always one to lead by example. He also helped carry whatever everyone was carrying without slacking off one bit. When it was Zhang Xiaoman's turn to carry the supplies, Ren Xiaosu was about to take the ammo box from his hands, but Zhang Xiaoman refused to let him do so. In fact, Ren Xiaosu did not bear any grudges against them for trying to beat him up. He even volunteered to help his comrades out, making everyone feel really embarrassed about how they treated him. When Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu, who was about to take the ammo box from his shoulder, he immediately said, "It's fine, you don't have to. I can carry it." However, Ren Xiaosu did not budge. He said with a dark expression, "Let go." Zhang Xiaoman subconsciously let go of his hand, and Ren Xiaosu grabbed the ammo box. Even if he could carry it, Ren Xiaosu wouldn't allow it. Wouldn't that delay the progress of his quest? Initially, Ren Xiaosu thought he could complete the quest by just helping them carry 1 or 2 ammo boxes. But after testing, the palace updated him that the quest was only 1% complete. It meant he would have to do it 100 times before the quest would be considered complete. There had always been a better reward for the more challenging quests he was given. Ren Xiaosu was starting to look forward to the reward this time. But Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt like something was missing as he carried the ammo box. He looked back at Zhang Xiaoman and said, "Aren't you going to thank me?" Zhang Xiaoman was stunned before muttering, "Thank you, gratitude received from Zhang Xiaoman, +1. Zhang Xiaoman said from behind, "Don't push yourself too hard, preserving your combat strength is the most important thing." Ren Xiaosu had been carrying something on his shoulder all day. But even when the rest of the troops looked really tired, Ren Xiaosu looked fresh. All of a sudden, Ren Xiaosu stopped in his tracks. Someone's coming. In that instant, all the soldiers of the razor-sharp company went prone inside the gully. Ren Xiaosu was shocked when he looked back at them. His comrades were way too cautious. It wasn't until 10 seconds later that they heard a motorcycle in the distance. It seemed to be coming from the east, so that could only mean it was someone from Mt Ding Yuan. Zhang Xiaoman lay on the ground and said to the others, "Don't alert the enemy. We can't be discovered." Before he could finish speaking, the bandit riding the motorcycle suddenly screamed in the distance. Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. What was that? Who's screaming when I was just saying to not make a sound? Didn't I say to stay hidden and not alert the enemy? Captain, the scream came from way over there. It's not our people. From over there. Zhang Xiaoman was puzzled. Wait a minute, where's Ren Xiaosu? When they cautiously poked their heads out of the gully, they saw that Ren Xiaosu had snapped the bandit's neck and left him lying on the ground. Ren Xiaosu took off his razor-sharp company's uniform and put on that bandit's clothes. Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. What are you doing? Ren Xiaosu said, I'll push the motorcycle and head up Mt Guan. I noticed earlier that it'd take around an hour to walk up the mountain road. In exactly an hour, I want all to start firing the mortars at the mountain. You don't have to worry about whether it's accurate. Just create a distraction. After that, prepare to intercept the bandits coming from Mt Ding Yuan. There's no need to worry about me. The razor-sharp company's soldiers looked at one another. Was Ren Xiaosu planning to head up Mt Guan all by himself? Zhang Xiaoman asked, Are you gonna be fine by yourself? Yes. Ren Xiaosu nodded. Don't worry, I'm not looking to die. But it's too dangerous. Why don't I send a platoon to cover you? Zhang Xiaoman said. There's no need for that. Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said, I'll help y'all pin down the bandits on Mt Guan first. If the situation goes south, I'll retreat. As long as I can lure the bandits out from Mt Ding Yuan, everything that I do there will be worth it. Zhang Xiaoman turned serious. You're a brother of our razor-sharp company from now on. If you sadly sacrifice yourself there, I'll make sure our comrades back at the fortress learn that you were a brave man. How could there be no deaths in a war? There would surely have to be some sacrifices if they wanted to win the war. The razor-sharp company's current mission was to take Mt Ding Yuan. If they could not complete their mission on time, it would delay the progress of the entire army. They were going to be in for a tough battle. But First Platoon Commander Jiao Xiaochen suddenly wondered, why would you have to push the motorcycle up the mountain? Wouldn't it be better to ride it? Ren Xiaosu was silent for a while. I don't know how to ride it. Zhang Xiaoman was speechless, as was Jiao Xiaochen. All of the razor-sharp company's soldiers were speechless. It would take an hour for Ren Xiaosu to head up the mountain and probably another hour for the reinforcements from Mt Ding Yuan to reach this location. So there wasn't much time left for Zhang Xiaoman and the others to get ready. As Jiao Xiaochen led the group to construct the trenches, he muttered, I thought the commander sent us a weakling, but it turns out he's the best. Do y'all feel that he has a grudge against these bandits? Someone wondered. I feel like he really wants to fight these bandits and the Zone Consortium until he kills them all. I can feel it too. Zhang Xiaoman sighed. There's some sort of ferocity deep in that kid's bones. He could kill someone just like that without batting an eyelid. Before we could even react, he finished off that bandit. When he was pushing the motorcycle to go up the mountain just now, I could sense a killing intent in him. You must have fucking listened to too many stories. You can even sense something like killing intent now? Get out of here. Zhang Xiaoman was sitting in the trenches and estimated the time. Are the mortars ready? Captain, our mortars definitely can't hit the mountain since their effective range is only 3 kilometers. Jiao Xiaochen wiped away his sweat and said, "Should we get a little closer? That way, we can still provide some cover for him. Our mortars are probably still a bit far from the bandit lair on Mt. Guan to effectively hit them." No, Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. "Our most important task is to wipe out the bandits coming from Mt. Dingyuan. It's not that I don't want to provide cover for him, but our mission must be completed. We can only talk about other matters after the mission is done." "What if there's no what ifs," Zhang Xiaoman refuted. "It's an honor for a soldier to die on the battlefield. Since he's decided to go, he must have some skills to keep himself alive. Don't ever underestimate a supernatural being. Have you forgotten how strong old Su's superpower is? And Ren Xiaosu might even be stronger than old Su." Supernatural beings had now become a variable on the battlefield. They were sharp daggers that could kill the enemy as soon as they were stabbed in the right position. When it was time, Zhang Xiaoman immediately ordered Jiao Xiaochen to launch the mortars and create a distraction. After the mortars exploded, intense gunfire suddenly came from the mountainside. Someone said, "It seems like the bandits on Mt. Guan have already started fighting. Are we really not going to support him? I think I just heard a train whistle. Did I hear wrong? He definitely can't deal with them by himself. No matter how powerful a supernatural being is, they're still afraid of bullets. Why don't we attack Mt. Guan first?" Zhang Xiaoman said coldly, "Keep your guards up, all of you. Our current enemies are the bandits from Mt. Dingyuan, not the bandits here at Mt. Guan." But at this moment, the gunfire on the mountainside subsided. Zhang Xiaoman frowned. Why have the gunshots stopped so quickly? Has he retreated already, or did he sacrifice himself? He sacrificed himself, more than likely. Based on last year's intel, there were at least 700 bandits gathered up on Mt. Guan. No matter how powerful Ren Xiaosu was, he could not possibly wipe out all the bandits by himself. Moreover, there should be gunshots from the pursuing bandits if Ren Xiaosu had fled down the mountain. But right now, they couldn't hear any gunshots at all. This suggested the battle on the mountain had already ended. Therefore, the most reasonable explanation was that Ren Xiaosu had overestimated his own strength when he said he would pin down the bandits on Mt. Guan. In the end, his plan backfired on him. But the reinforcements at Mt. Dingyuan won't come over here to give support if the battles ended so quickly. Then our plan is ruined. Jiao Xiaochen sighed. What should we do now? Should we retreat? Wait a while longer. Zhang Xiaoman said, what if the bandits from Mt. Dingyuan rush here? We can fight as many of them as we can then. Our enemies have motorcycles that allow them to travel freely in the valley while we retreat on foot. If we evacuate at this moment, we'll be caught up to very soon by the enemy. If that's the case, we might as well defend this position and fight back. The soldiers of the razor-sharp company leaned against the trench walls, hugging their guns. The commander is really unlucky. The two candidates he chose so far have both ended up dead. There's nothing to be sorry about. Zhang Xiaoman said calmly, on the battlefield, you never know when someone will die. However, the razor-sharp company waited for nearly an hour in the trenches at the foot of the mountain. They did not see any bandit reinforcements coming from Mt. Dingyuan, nor did any bandits charge down from Mt. Guan to kill them. This feels a little strange. Zhang Xiaoman wondered, we exposed our position when we fired the mortars earlier, so why were the bandits on Mt. Guan not coming down to attack us? Never mind that the bandits from Mt. Dingyuan did not come, why aren't the bandits on Mt. Guan coming down either? But at this moment, a soldier poked his head out and saw someone walking slowly on the mountain road towards them. The figure was covered in blood and prominently stood out in the dusty landscape. Isn't that Ren Xiaosu? He's still alive! Jiao Xiaochen exclaimed. They had been speculating and coming up with many scenarios, but never had they thought Ren Xiaosu would be walking out of the mountain alive. When the calm-looking Zhang Xiaoman heard Ren Xiaosu's name, he immediately got out of the trench and ran towards him. He circled Ren Xiaosu for a while and asked, "Did you get injured? How did you manage to escape?" "Medic! Medic, get over here!" Ren Xiaosu stayed silent for a moment before suddenly saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't complete the mission." Zhang Xiaoman chuckled when he saw that Ren Xiaosu was all right. "It's good enough that you're still alive. I said that you were too overconfident. How could you possibly pin down the bandits on Mt. Guan all by yourself? Follow me into the trenches. When the bandits charge down, we'll still have a tough battle to fight." Ren Xiaosu said, "No, what I meant was that I killed them so fast they couldn't even call for reinforcements from Mt. Dingyuan." Everyone from the razor-sharp company was stupefied. "Is it fucking appropriate for you to say something so ruthless while putting on a sad face like that?" Zhang Xiaoman asked in bewilderment, "You aren't joking, right?" Ren Xiaosu said, "The bandits of Mt. Guan almost turned out in full force for a battle last month, but they were all killed. There were only about 100 bandits left on Mount Guan, so they weren't as strong as y'all thought." "Aha!" Zhang Xiaoman was stunned for a moment. "But how do you know about it?" Ren Xiaosu did not reply. He suddenly missed Liu Yuan a little. Zhang Xiaoman and the others still felt that something was wrong. Even with only 100 bandits left on this mountain, the battle should not have ended this quickly, right? In that case, did it mean that Ren Xiaosu had killed all the bandits on the mountain single-handedly? "Are you sure the bandits on the mountain are all dead?" Zhang Xiaoman asked in confirmation. "You better not joke around in the military." Ren Xiaosu said, "There's still some HMGs and a lot of ammo left on the mountain, so I think we should go up and get them." "We don't have enough ammo, after all." "That's not what I was asking about." Zhang Xiaoman was a little speechless. An hour later, Zhang Xiaoman was looking at the bodies lying around the bandit lair on Mt. Guan. Then he said to a radio telephone operator, "Notify Commander Zhou. I've gotta give him a satrap." The RTO walked over with a portable radio. When Zhang Xiaoman took the handset, he heard Zhou Yinglong shouting on the other end, "Maggot, why are you looking for me at a time like this? Are you thinking of giving up because you feel you can't take Mt. Dingyuan? Let me tell you, you already pledged to do it, so even if you can't, you'll still have to fight." Zhang Xiaoman said in a speechless manner, "Battalion Commander, we've already taken Mt. Guan. We will be attacking Mt. Dingyuan tomorrow." But in the end, Mt. Guan was taken not long after the razor-sharp company set out. Zhang Xiaoman asked on the radio, "Battalion Commander, does this count as our credit?" "Yes, yes, yes," Zhou Yinglong replied. "What are the razor-sharp company's casualties? If there's too many casualties, take a short rest and wait for reinforcements." "We didn't suffer any casualties." Even as Zhang Xiaoman said that, he was finding it hard to believe. As such, he did not bother hiding the truth. There were only about 100 bandits on Mount Guan, and they were all killed single-handedly by Ren Xiaosu. "I'm shocked by it, let alone you. We had only planned for him to pin down the bandits on Mt. Guan. But in the end, he pinned them down so hard that all of them died." Then Zhang Xiaoman even heard Zhou Yinglong take a deep breath through the radio before shouting, "What the?" At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was wiping the blood off his body by a stream behind Mt. Guan. After that, he changed back into the razor-sharp company's combat uniform. Jiao Xiaochen and the others watched Ren Xiaosu as they collected the ammunition and supplies a short distance away. "Did y'all see that? He's acting like it's no big deal after killing over 100 people. He's a little too calm, ain't he? I wonder what he did before coming to Fortress 178. I heard he was also a refugee. He was even a student of Commander Zhang's and well known as ruthless in town. That's what old Su told me." Ren Xiaosu stood at the edge of the stream after changing back into the uniform of the razor-sharp company. This was just the beginning of his revenge. He still had a lot more battles to fight. Zhang Xiaoman finished reporting to Zhou Yinglong. He asked Jiao Xiaochen, "Count everything we collected." "We've collected two 12.7 mm caliber HMGs that came with wheeled mounts and gun shields, 31 ammo boxes, and 2 mortars," Jiao Xiaochen reported. "There's also a lot of rifles, but those are useless to us. Having more guns wasn't necessarily better. They would still need people to carry them to be effective. So the rifles were not much different from scrap metal to them. Take the mortars and rounds, dismantle the wheel mounts and gun shields from the HMGs before taking them, and grab the HMG ammo too." Zhang Xiaoman said, "The gun shields of the machine guns are more useful in the plains. It's not convenient for us to bring them while on the march." "Wait, something's wrong. Weren't there any grenades there?" Jiao Xiaochen shook his head. "No, we didn't find a single grenade. Were those bandits so poor they couldn't even afford grenades?" Zhang Xiaoman wondered. It was not that the bandits on Mt. Guan were poor, but that Ren Xiaosu had already stuffed 7 full boxes of grenades into his storage space before heading down the mountain. Before he obtained any explosive poker cards that were at least 6s, Ren Xiaosu felt he could use the grenades as a replacement. As for how powerful a quad 6 bomb was, he couldn't gauge that yet. Zhang Xiaoman looked at the pile of firearms with shimmering eyes. Even the razor-sharp company was only equipped with the standard weaponry whenever they headed out for battle. They did not usually get issued with so much firepower. So they had to depend on their own abilities to get whatever they could from the battlefield. Jiao Xiaochen shouldered a machine gun. "This thing's mine." As he finished speaking, Ren Xiaosu grabbed the machine gun out of Jiao Xiaoqin's hands. Jiao Xiaochen was stunned for a moment. Then he heard Ren Xiaosu say, "Platoon commander, let me carry it for you." Jiao Xiaochen was moved to tears. He was such a competent soldier and had such great esprit de corps. Just what kind of an angelic teammate was he? "Thank you, Ren Xiaosu," Jiao Xiaochen said. Gratitude received from Jiao Xiaochen, +1. Ren Xiaosu realized it was rather easy to gain gratitude tokens at Fortress 178. Now that his quest was almost complete, he thought he maybe should continue gaining more gratitude tokens even after the quest. "Captain," Ren Xiaosu looked at Zhang Xiaoman and asked, "What do we do next?" "We'll besiege Mt. Dingyuan." Zhang Xiaoman replied, "The Forward Strike Battalion and Engineering Battalion are about to reach our north. They're going to establish an FOB there, so we can't have the bandits in the rear go and make trouble for them." "Is the FOB essential?" Ren Xiaosu asked. He was not doubting him but just humbly asking, "What's the use of an FOB?" Ren Xiaosu's impression was that a forward operating base was just a place where one could eat. Zhang Xiaoman patiently explained, "By using the FOB, it can greatly reduce the time the troops spend traveling from the rear to the front lines. It can also extend supply lines to a place closer to the enemy's location. For example, an armored brigade must resupply at an FOB before venturing further into the depths of the battlefield." Ren Xiaosu nodded to show he understood. "Then how are we attacking Mt. Dingyuan?" Commander Zhou said we don't have to do a head-on attack, so we only need to blockade them on Mt. Dingyuan. Zhang Xiaoman said, "Now that Mt. Guan has been taken, the plan has changed. As such, our mission is no longer considered too difficult, so we should try to keep our casualties to a minimum. After the FOB is built, there'll be new troops coming to provide us with fire support. Then it'll be much easier to capture our target." That same night, everyone took a short rest atop Mt. Guan. While the soldiers took off their shoes and sat by the campfire, Ren Xiaosu walked away quietly. Zhang Xiaoman looked at the solitary Ren Xiaosu, who was standing near the edge of the cliff. He suddenly said to the other soldiers, "Looks like he's got something on his mind." "Captain, it's 'cause our feet stink." Zhang Xiaoman joked, "Don't you think he's weighed down by something?" "A little." Zhang Xiaoman turned around and looked at Ren Xiaosu's back. He had a feeling that Ren Xiaosu had been through much more than they imagined. He went up to Ren Xiaosu with some piping hot vegetable soup. "Here, eat your fill." Thank you, Captain," Ren Xiaosu said. However, Zhang Xiaoman did not walk away after handing the soup to him. Instead, he asked, "I heard you recently arrived at Fortress 178. Why have you chosen to come to such a poor place?" Ren Xiaosu gave Zhang Xiaoman a look. "I didn't plan on coming here, but there's something important that I have to do, and I also share some common goals with Fortress 178. "Oh, I see." Zhang Xiaoman nodded. "Captain, why did you join the Fortress 178 army?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "I was born in Fortress 178. Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile. The first thing the young men in the fortress do when they turn 16 is to get a physical to see if they can qualify as soldiers. Some people even attempt suicide after failing the test due to flat feet. "Why?" Ren Xiaosu asked in surprise. Zhang Xiaoman looked to the northwest like he could see Fortress 178. Then he replied with a smile, "So they can get a chance to prove they're brave warriors when the copper bell in the center of the fortress tolls." As they were now carrying more ammunition and supplies, the weight on each person's back was almost as heavy as half their own weight. Although everyone was complaining that they were really tired, no one was willing to throw away the ammunition because they depended on it for survival on the battlefield. Using Zhang Xiaoman's own words, when the war arrived, they could only trust the guns in their hands, the bullets in the magazines, and their comrades in the trenches. Therefore, the razor-sharp company despised cowards, as cowards in a company would get their comrades killed. I heard that when Commander Zhang joined the razor-sharp company as a medic, he was not even willing to fire a gun. Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile as he struggled to march forward. At that time, the razor-sharp company's warriors all despised him, yet he did not argue once. But in a battle, he ended up saving the lives of hundreds of wounded soldiers. Not only did he save his own company's comrades, but comrades from other companies were saved as well. That was how he earned their respect in the end. Before that, everyone thought he was just a coward. These gruff men of Fortress 178 were not at all afraid to discuss Zhang Jinglan, and Zhang Jinglan did not seem to mind it either. Zhang Xiaoman said, "When I saw your thin and weak frame initially, I thought you wouldn't be good at fighting. However, I never expected you to be so fearsome." "Curious," Ren Xiaosu asked, "were you also there when Mr. Zhang was in the razor-sharp company?" "Fat chance. I was still playing in the mud back then." Zhang Xiaoman smiled and said, "That was all in the older generation's time." "The older generation?" Ren Xiaosu asked, "Who's from the older generation in Fortress 178? Zhang Xiaoman thought back and replied, "There's no point mentioning them since most of them are dead." "That tragic? Hey!" Ren Xiaosu was startled. "What happened?" 16 years ago, there was a war so terrible 90% of our original army perished in it. The remaining survivors said it was a war they barely escaped alive from, with the fortress almost getting destroyed too." Zhang Xiaoman said, "Do you know why Fortress 178 used to accept refugees? On one hand, everyone was a refugee to begin with, while others were exiled criminals from the Central Plains. So no one disliked one another since they all had the same status. On the other hand, it was because no others were willing to come to this poor place except for refugees. Fortress 178 needed those people to defend the place." Ren Xiaosu said in surprise, "There were even exiles from the Central Plains in Fortress 178. "Yes." Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile, "My neighbor's one of them, but I haven't seen anyone from the Central Plains get exiled to the fortress in over 10 years. I heard they've started exiling them to Stronghold 176 in the north instead. And north of Stronghold 176 is the steppe. Is Stronghold 176 very far away from where we are now?" "Yes." Then Ren Xiaosu asked, "Do you have any other thoughts or wishes other than waiting for the bell to sound?" "Yeah," Zhang Xiaoman laughed and said, I want to be a brigade commander just like my father. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. Your father was a brigade commander. Zhang Xiaoman paused for a moment before saying, what I mean is, my father's dream was to be a brigade commander as well. Ren Xiaosu was surprised. The journey from Mt Guan to Mt Dingyuan was quite short. Before they had gone far, Jiao Xiaochen, who was in charge of leading the formation, suddenly raised his palm. All of the soldiers in the rear immediately took a knee and raised their guns in full alert. Zhang Xiaoman stooped low and ran to the front of the formation. He whispered, what's the matter? We discovered signs of the enemy. I think it's a hidden lookout post, Jiao Xiaochen said. Zhang Xiaoman picked up his binoculars and looked ahead. He was surprised to see smoke coming out of the gully several hundred meters ahead. I think someone might be smoking. The smoke produced from cooking does not look like that at all. These fucking bandits even have guards to keep a lookout on the foot of the mountain, how professional. Too bad the guards on duty are idiots. The bandits under the Zone Consortium's control were truly different from other bandits, but all in all, they were still bandits. What do we do? Jiao Xiaochen asked, should we kill them? We'll keep marching in the gully towards them. Fu Rao, Lin Ping'an, see if you two can get to the road over there and kill them quietly without your guns. I don't want to cause a commotion, Zhang Xiaoman said. These two were the most outstanding soldiers in the razor-sharp company and were experts at infiltration and knife fighting. However, Fu Rao whispered, Captain, Ren Xiaosu has already gone ahead. As those words trailed off, Zhang Xiaoman's head started to hurt. Having such a fearsome person in the company was also a very frustrating experience. He said, let's wait here quietly. Zhang Xiaoman was most worried that Ren Xiaosu would cause too much of a commotion. However, it was dead silent ahead of them. After several minutes, Ren Xiaosu returned with two people in his hands. They were not dead, just unconscious. Ren Xiaosu threw the two men on the ground. We can ask them about their deployment on the mountain. Who knows, maybe we can use our mortars to take out their MG positions. Bandits aren't really tight-lipped, and the two of them should know quite a lot about the operations. Zhang Xiaoman was taken aback. Most of the time when sneaking past an enemy's defensive line, it was quite difficult to capture them alive. That was because they had to prevent the enemy from struggling, firing warning shots, or shouting to warn others. So the only action taken would be to kill on sight. But with the appearance of Ren Xiaosu, he made the impossible possible. However, Zhang Xiaoman said in a serious tone, Xiaosu, I know you are very capable, but you still have to listen to orders during an OP. You have to wait for my command, understand? I'm purposely putting on airs as the company commander, but troops have to obey their commanding officer and execute their orders to a T in a battle. Ren Xiaosu pondered this. Understood, I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. You don't have experience serving as a soldier of Fortress 178, nor did you go through any training before getting deployed to the battlefield. So long as you have a modest attitude, we'll teach you whatever we can during battles. Ren Xiaosu nodded. Okay, I won't act without permission in the future. While Zhang Xiaoman got someone to slap the two bandits on the ground to wake them, Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an held daggers to their necks and said, We'll remove our hands, but if you dare shout, you're dead. The two bandits nodded frantically. Zhang Xiaoman took out a battle map and two pencils, then said, I'll give both of you a chance. If you can help us draw the defensive deployment map of Mt Dingyuan, I'll spare your lives. Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an removed their palms from the bandits' mouths. However, the two bandits asked, What's a defensive deployment map? Just indicate the positions of the heavy machine guns and mortars on the mountain, then tell me how many people are guarding those positions. Zhang Xiaoman said coldly, We're from Fortress 178. If you cooperate with us, we'll let you go, understand? The two bandits were stunned. You're from Fortress 178? Sure, we'll cooperate. Ren Xiaosu was stunned when he saw this. It was like the bandits were not worried Zhang Xiaoman would go back on his words after he mentioned the name of Fortress 178. Although Fortress 178 had attempted to map out the mountain hideouts as detailed as possible, their work was all carried out in secret. As some areas could only be measured visually, deviations on the map were guaranteed. The two bandits took the pencils and drew some circles on the map, with a small circle indicating that it was a heavy machine gun position. The two of them said, but the heavy machine gun positions often get switched around. A lot of equipment on the mountain are also covered with tarps. We don't know what's under them either, so y'all must be careful. Y'all can't get to the top because the path leading up the mountain has been cut off by trees. A bandit pointed at a route on the map and said, "It seems that our boss was ordered to defend Mt Dingyuan, so he shipped in a bunch of supplies in advance. He said that as long as we can defend the place for 3 months, everyone would be rewarded." Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "Are there any regulars on the mountain?" The two bandits shook their heads. "No, but there's some very powerful folks mixed in with the bandits. They definitely weren't bandits in the valley before." "How many of them are there?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "About 100. There's more than 900 bandits in total on Mt Dingyuan," one of the bandits said. Ren Xiaosu nodded and did not say anything else. An entire formation of the Zone Consortium's regular troops was among those who had intercepted his group, so he had to get to the bottom of it. If the Zone Consortium's regular troops were here on Mt Dingyuan, he would have to be careful of them. "Is there no other way up?" Zhang Xiaoman frowned and asked, "Did they say why y'all had to defend Mt Dingyuan?" "No, how could we know something like that?" One of the bandits said, "So can we leave now?" Zhang Xiaoman hesitated for a moment before waving them off. "Scram, head west, and don't let me see you two again." "Ah, all right." The two bandits got up and started to run, but before they even covered 2 steps, they turned around and asked, "Sir, do you have any cigs?" Zhang Xiaoman said impatiently, "Our cigs don't contain the stuff you add into yours." "That's fine," the two bandits said. Zhang Xiaoman had Jiao Xiaochen throw 2 packs of cigarettes to them. "Get lost." Ren Xiaosu asked, "We're letting them go just like that?" Fortress 178 never breaks a promise. "Don't worry, the bandits in the valley are all sensible. They won't turn around once they're told to head west," Zhang Xiaoman said nonchalantly. Ren Xiaosu watched as the two bandits disappeared after passing crisscrossing gullies in the west. If it were him, he would not have spared their lives. But he could not say what Zhang Xiaoman did was wrong. Fortress 178 had its own way of survival, after all. The bandits on Mt Dingyuan have already sealed off the mountain path. Strange, why did they seal off the path? What's the point of keeping guard for 3 months? Zhang Xiaoman wondered. That'll save us a lot of trouble if we just keep guard at the foot of the mountain. They won't be heading down the mountain anyway, Jiao Xiaochen said. No, Zhang Xiaoman said, there must be something fishy about their decision to defend this place. War is not just about a rigid execution of orders. We'll only be successful if we can make the enemy uncomfortable. Why don't we take Mt Dingyuan by ourselves? Yesterday, Battalion Commander Zhou had ordered them to only lay siege on the bandits at Mt Dingyuan after they had taken Mt Guan. But from the looks of it, it seemed they would still have to attack Mt Dingyuan after all. But it's a good thing that we already know about the locations of their HMGs, so we can reduce our casualties by pointing our mortars directly at the enemy's emplacements and destroying them. We must immediately force an attack. Otherwise, when their MG positions change, all the information we just obtained will become outdated, Zhang Xiaoman said. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, didn't you say that we should listen to orders in battle? The order was for us to lay siege on the enemies from the foot of the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman explained patiently, what I want to teach you now is how to be adaptable during battle. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu while pondering what he had just said. He suddenly felt that he should not have taught him that. Jiao Xiaochen said, "Are we going to launch an attack tonight then?" Zhang Xiaoman nodded and said, "If only there were other smaller paths leading up the mountain. We could have sent someone to covertly infiltrate their lair. But this is the only route we have to the top of Mt Dingyuan. We can only fight our way up even if it's gonna be really difficult. Radioman, contact Commander Zhou and report the situation to him." Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu said, "I can climb up the back of Mt Dingyuan and sneak attack them first, then coordinate further action with y'all." The entire razor-sharp company was stunned when they heard that. "How are you gonna climb up that 80-degree slope at the back of the mountain?" "I have my ways." Ren Xiaosu said, "Just give me 2 packs of TNT." The razor-sharp company was still well equipped with ammunition. However, TNT was generally used to blow up bunkers and artillery positions, so no one understood what Ren Xiaosu was planning to do with them. Zhang Xiaoman clenched his teeth and said, "Take care of yourself." Zhang Xiaoman suddenly felt that it was amazing to have such a fearsome person in the company who would always volunteer for the most dangerous tasks. It had never been easier to fight a war now that they had a person like him with such excellent combat skills. In his opinion, it did not matter if Ren Xiaosu was qualified to be the commander of Fortress 178 or not. But at least having a character like Ren Xiaosu on the battlefield was really nice. Zhang Xiaoman said to Ren Xiaosu, "Regardless of whether the others support you or not, our razor-sharp company will support you. Ain't that so, everyone?" Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. "What do you mean by supporting me?" He somehow felt like he missed out on something very important. At 9 p.m., Zhang Xiaoman handed the TNT and a rope over to Ren Xiaosu for him to carry on his back. "When you're climbing up the back of the mountain, you must be extremely careful. If you feel like you can't get up there, don't force it." Ren Xiaosu nodded. "Don't worry. When y'all hear the TNT go off on the mountain in 6 hours, immediately start the attack on Mt Dingyuan and destroy their HMG positions first. I'll be supporting y'all from up there." Through the military case studies of previous wars, Zhang Xiaoman and the others had learned that paratroopers would usually get para-dropped onto the battlefield for them to open a path for the rest of the forces to enter. In this way, they could effectively avoid the enemy's interdiction. They were destined to not have things like paratroopers in this era, but that would not stop a fearsome person from climbing a 700-meter tall and 80-degree steep cliff with his bare hands. Besides, could a normal paratrooper have a combat strength as powerful as Ren Xiaosu's? Watching as Ren Xiaosu faded into the distance, Jiao Xiaochen suddenly said, "We must start our attack as soon as we hear the noise. I feel that if we don't act quickly enough, he'll wipe out all of the enemy forces before we get there." When they attacked Mt Guan, everyone was worried that Ren Xiaosu would die on the mountain. But this time, they were afraid he would kill the bandits too quickly. However, Zhang Xiaoman shook his head and said, "It'll be harder to take Mt Dingyuan than Mt Guan since the bandit numbers are several times higher." According to Ren Xiaosu, the main fighting forces on Mt Guan died in a previous battle, leaving only remnants of the original bandit group there. "We still need to launch an attack on the mountain ASAP, though, so we can ensure Ren Xiaosu's safety. It's the responsibility of the entire razor-sharp company to fight the battle. We can't let him face the pressure all by himself. Starting now, we'll begin implementing noise and light discipline. There will be no smoking, no talking, and no using of flashlights. Everything must be done in silence." Zhang Xiaoman was thinking about something as he looked at the silhouette of Mt Dingyuan in the distance. It was not that he was a daredevil for trying to attack from the rear by himself, but that he did not really wish to reveal his shadow clone in front of Zhang Xiaoman and the others. If Zhang Xiaoman and the others knew he had a shadow clone similar to old Su's, a lot of things would probably come to light. This was something Ren Xiaosu had still not figured out how to explain to Su Xianchu. How should he explain things to old Su when the time came? Maybe he could just deny any knowledge of the Black Cauldron's origins and convince him not to think too much into it. At this moment, the shadow clone was climbing up the face of the mountain while carrying Ren Xiaosu on its back. One of the greatest advantages of the shadow clone was that it would not get tired at all. If Ren Xiaosu tried to climb the mountain on his own, he might not have any strength left to fight even if he could reach the top. His current fitness was only a little more than 3 times that of normal people's, so he was still not that tough. But it was different for the shadow clone. If every supernatural being's control of their superpowers were dependent on their mental strength, then Ren Xiaosu had never really experienced the limit of his willpower before, and neither did he know what his limits were. The shadow clone used the 2 black sabers as anchors as it climbed up the cliff. The black saber was so sharp it could pierce into the cliff easily, but the only thing was that the sabers had to be thrust in laterally. Otherwise, if the saber penetrated into the mountain blade down, the weight of the shadow clone and Ren Xiaosu would cause the black sabers to cut through the stone face like tofu. Ren Xiaosu had discussed with Zhang Xiaoman's group to take action 6 hours after he started scaling the mountain. But in reality, he was a little ahead of time after moving much faster than he had predicted. When Ren Xiaosu poked his head up on the top of the cliff, he saw a campfire burning in the distance in an open space of the bandit lair on Mt Dingyuan. Some people were sitting next to the campfire holding guns while keeping a lookout. But no one was keeping watch on the back of the mountain. It looked like the bandits never expected anyone to be so brave to actually scale the face of the mountain. Ren Xiaosu did not put away his shadow clone but manipulated it to do a quick survey of the surrounding terrain. Meanwhile, he moved quietly in the shadows. As there were about 900 bandits on Mount Dingyuan, Ren Xiaosu could not possibly attack them head-on. If he still had his full set of armor, he could have easily taken Mt Dingyuan by himself without the help of Zhang Xiaoman and the others. But unfortunately, 80% of his nanomachines were destroyed in that battle. And now, he only had enough to barely protect his vitals. He wondered if he would encounter the Yang Consortium's nano-soldiers in the future. However, Ren Xiaosu did not really want to lay a finger on the Yang Consortium's people. It would be quite good if some of the Li Consortium's 1,500 nano-soldiers who attacked Stronghold 88 had survived. Of course, Ren Xiaosu was aware that this was just a passing thought. He knew that neither the Yang Consortium nor the Li Consortium's nano-soldiers would come north. The shadow clone had already crept into one of the barracks and slit the necks of 2 sleeping bandits with its black saber. Everything was carried out quietly. There were only 12 people to a room in the barracks of the bandit lair, and it only took 20 seconds for the shadow clone to kill everyone in the room. However, Ren Xiaosu knew he could not use this method too many times since accidents would definitely happen. All of a sudden, he heard someone speaking in a low voice. After searching for some time, he still could not locate where the sound was coming from. Finally, Ren Xiaosu's gaze settled at a latrine. It was a pit latrine surrounded by a brick wall with only a broken wooden door covering the front, and the metallic hook for locking the wooden door seemed broken as well. The person in the outhouse even had to stretch his arm out and hold the wooden door to prevent it from opening. It looked like someone inside was watching the outside through a small hole in the door. If any bandit walked over, this person would see them through the hole. But it was different for Ren Xiaosu since he had arrived from the back of the mountain. Ren Xiaosu quietly walked up to the outhouse and listened in on the person inside who was whispering, "Boss, I really can't stay on Mt Dingyuan any longer. They've even sealed the path." Someone said Mt Guan was taken by Fortress 178. The Zone Consortium has hidden 252 caliber/155 mm howitzers with a firing range of more than 50 kilometers on this mountain. This weapon was phased out of the Zone Consortium's arsenal and placed here at the bandit lair after they calculated the target's strike location. I'm guessing they'll use it to launch a surprise attack on Fortress 178's FOB. The person inside continued, "Boss, if the Zone Consortium uses the howitzers, I'm afraid Fortress 178 will raze Mount Dingyuan to the ground." If I continue to stay here, wouldn't I have to die along with them? Okay, thank you, boss. I'll head down the mountain tonight. Do you think we should inform Fortress 178 about the situation on Mt. Dingyuan? Alright, I'll make a trip to their military base and inform them. We can't let the Zone Consortium do whatever they want. We have to prevent them from ruining our battle plans in the south. Ren Xiaosu was listening to everything from the outside. It sounded like the bandit spy inside the outhouse was contacting someone with a remote communications device and reporting about the situation at Mt. Dingyuan. The two bandits had said there were some secret supplies transported up the mountain covered with tarps and that no one knew what they were. Those were probably the howitzers the spy was referring to, right? An effective firing range of more than 50 kilometers could really be called terrifying. Ren Xiaosu remembered Zhang Xiaoman said the forward operating base to the north was only about 40 kilometers from Mount Dingyuan, and that it was the most suitable place to establish a forward operating base. The Zone Consortium wasn't stupid. They were planning on dealing a severe blow to Fortress 178 with the two howitzers that had been phased out of their arsenal. Although these two howitzers might not be that significant, they could still throw Fortress 178's plan into disarray and intimidate their military. Based on Zhou Yinglong's plan, the forward operating base would be in deep trouble if the razor-sharp company only surrounded Mt. Dingyuan. Was Zhou Yinglong prepared for this? Ren Xiaosu was unsure. However, this person in the outhouse should be from the Qing Consortium, right? There were only the Qing Consortium and the Yang Consortium left in the south. The Qing Consortium was probably the only organization that could send someone here to Mt. Dingyuan to act as a bandit for such a prolonged period. At this moment, when the shadow clone broke into another room in the barracks, some bandits were actually still awake. When they saw it, they shouted so loudly that all the bandits on Mt. Dingyuan were jolted awake. The person in the outhouse whispered, "Boss, I can't talk anymore. It sounds like there's a situation on the mountain." While he was still speaking, Ren Xiaosu reached out and pulled open the outhouse door. But he had not expected the person in the outhouse to still be holding onto the door. With one pull, Ren Xiaosu dragged the spy out of the outhouse before he could even pull his pants up. "Who the fuck?" that person shouted as he laid on the ground with his butt bare. He was already preparing to pick a fight with Ren Xiaosu without pulling up his pants. Ren Xiaosu pointed a pistol at the spy. "You're from the Qing Consortium." The spy was not stupid. Looking down the barrel of the gun, he turned obedient. He heard the shouting in the distance, then looked at Ren Xiaosu's razor-sharp company fatigues. "You're from Fortress 178. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu felt like the spy seemed to be relieved. But before Ren Xiaosu could do anything, the spy smashed the palm-sized communication device in his hand onto the ground with the gun still pointed at his head. Ren Xiaosu did not reveal his name. "Pull up your pants first." "Oh, right." The spy hurriedly pulled up his pants. He had not even managed to wipe his butt before getting dragged out of the outhouse. "How many others from the Qing Consortium are here on Mt. Dingyuan?" Ren Xiaosu asked. The spy said with a wry smile, "Sir, I really don't understand what you're getting at. If you're planning on attacking Mt. Dingyuan, I can show you the way." Ren Xiaosu lifted the spy over the edge of the cliff. "If you don't tell me the truth, I'll drop you." When the spy realized Ren Xiaosu could lift him up with one hand, he closed his eyes while hanging over the edge and muttered, "Brothers, I'll be leaving first then." Ren Xiaosu was so angry he almost laughed. He put the spy back on the ground. "That'll do. I'm actually a friend of Fatty Luo's. I'll let you go now. This place isn't safe anymore. But don't take the main path, or you're gonna die." At this moment, the spy was still unwilling to come clean. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu had loosened his grip, the spy turned and ran away. But after running for 50 meters without being fired at, he turned back around to Ren Xiaosu and said, "Blessed be the good man." After saying that, he continued running into the shadows. But even then, he still did not reveal his identity. But when Ren Xiaosu heard the words "Blessed be the good man," he somehow felt that it was not just a simple thank you. Ren Xiaosu shook his head for a bit before walking over to the bandit lair. Since he had already guessed the spy was from the Qing consortium, he would definitely not kill him. After all, he might still have to depend on Luolan and Qing Zhen to help him find his family after taking his revenge. Moreover, he thought of Luolan as his friend. At this moment, the entire bandit lair was in chaos. Although Ren Xiaosu did not venture into the battlefield, he felt like the bullets were hitting him. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu felt an enormous pain when a bullet hit the shadow clone in its forehead. Getting hit by a bullet there hurt much more than getting hit at other parts of his shadow clone's body. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu got a feeling that he couldn't allow the shadow clone to be hit between the brows. That could spell big trouble for him. Most supernatural beings were still in the midst of figuring out their powers, and Ren Xiaosu was no exception. As they learned more, everyone would gradually discover their powers had some weaknesses rather than being omnipotent. Ren Xiaosu took off a pack of TNT from his back and lit the fuse. Then he used the shadow door and threw the TNT outside a row of barracks. At this moment, someone was shooting at his shadow clone through a window in the barracks. With a loud explosion, the entire row of brick barracks collapsed and buried the bandits alive. However, there were a total of 7 rows of these barracks. But Ren Xiaosu was not expecting the battle would end by just throwing one block of TNT at the enemy. This was just the signal he was sending to the razor-sharp company at the foot of the mountain. As soon as the TNT went off, the razor-sharp company began to bombard the pre-identified heavy machine gun positions with their mortars from the foot of the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman was leaning against a trench wall and eating hardtack from his field rations. As his mouth was a little dry, he was about to drink some water when the TNT exploded on the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman yelled at Jiao Xiaochen, "Fire the mortars! Quickly, fire the mortars!" Hardtack crumbs sprayed out of his mouth onto Jiao Xiaochen's face, but Jiao Xiaochen couldn't care less and just wiped his face as he shouted the command, "Ready the mortar barrage! 3, 2, 1. Fire!" Thump, thump, thump. The mortar rounds flew towards the mountain, trailing smoke behind them. After that, their temporary positions were entirely filled with the smell of gunpowder. Zhang Xiaoman inspected his weapon again and said, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoons will charge forward with me. Radioman, contact Battalion HQ 1st Platoon will stay here and continue providing artillery support. Fire all the mortar rounds we collected. Now was not the time for them to worry about how much each mortar shell cost. The fiercer the artillery support, the fewer casualties they would suffer. Moreover, they would resupply ammunition once they took Mt Ding Yuan. Other soldiers often carefully rationed the ammunition they could use in battle, but the razor-sharp company was different. They were the types who would spend money as they wished and use whatever ammunition they had. If they ran out, they would simply ask for more from Zhou Yinglong without shame. If he refused to give them any, they would throw tantrums back at the battalion headquarters. These people were capable of doing whatever it took to get more supplies. The razor-sharp company's objective was to overcome difficulties, not be frugal while fighting a war. So once the battle began, Zhang Xiaoman assigned a platoon to fire the shells they had collected from Mt Guan like it didn't cost a thing. But when they proceeded up the mountain, Zhang Xiaoman realized the opposing forces he was initially expecting seemed to have disappeared entirely. After the mountain path was sealed, this route should have been heavily guarded by the bandits. However, there was no trace of anyone as they made their way up the mountain. When they passed by the first heavy machine gun position, Zhang Xiaoman was relieved to see that it was exactly where it was marked on the map. This meant their plan was proceeding smoothly. At this moment, intense gunfire suddenly came from the mountain again. Zhang Xiaoman had his men go prone and crawl all the way into a ditch on the side. But when they got into the ditch, everyone realized the gunshots were not aimed at them. What the fuck's happening on the mountaintop? Zhang Xiaoman was bewildered. Everyone, charge forward with me. Ren Xiaosu's in grave danger. But as they charged towards the final machine gun position, Zhang Xiaoman felt from afar that something was wrong. The bandits had switched the location of this heavy machine gun position. It was not positioned on the right side of the path like it was labeled on the map, but on the left. This MG wasn't destroyed in our mortar attack, Zhang Xiaoman said, finding it a little pitiful. 2ND Platoon Commander Wang Boran, charge your platoon forward and take out that MG. How could things always be smooth sailing in war? It would, of course, be wonderful if they could always take out all of their enemies' emplacements. But if the mortars could not take them all out, they would have to get it done by sacrificing some lives. At this moment, people were bound to die. But still, they would die for a worthy cause. The 2nd Platoon's commander, Wang Boran, looked up at the machine gun position and estimated it to be about 300 meters away from them. He said firmly to the soldiers of 2nd Platoon, Ma Duai, will provide cover fire for you to gain another 220 meters. Can you throw a grenade at that MG position? The grenadier, Ma Duai, hesitated for a moment. That's gonna be difficult. It's definitely in range, but I'm afraid that I won't be accurate. You have to make it happen no matter what. You only have 3 grenades to pull it off. If you don't throw it accurately, all of us will have to die with you. Wang Boran roared, charge! Then everyone in 2nd Platoon got out of the ditch and charged up the mountain. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman and the others had already set up their heavy machine guns and got ready to provide covering fire for 2nd Platoon. But at this moment, an explosion boomed at the final heavy machine gun position. All of the sandbags and the people inside were blown into the air. Zhang Xiaoman's eyes lit up. That's TNT. It's Ren Xiaosu. He blew up the HMG position for us. Brothers, charge! Charge! Everyone in the army who had fought in a battle before would know how difficult it was to destroy a heavy machine gun position. They truly represented the idea of a meat grinder and was an ultimate weapon that could be wielded on the main battlefield. But now that they had Ren Xiaosu, the heavy machine guns could be destroyed with the TNT. No one knew how he did that. Zhang Xiaoman and the others still did not know what Ren Xiaosu's superpower was. It was quite mysterious. But everyone had their secrets, so there was no need to delve deeper. When Zhang Xiaoman and his men finally charged up the mountain, they did not see Ren Xiaosu anywhere nearby. Meanwhile, the bandits up on the mountain were not concentrating their firepower in their direction, but away from them. Something's weird. Zhang Xiaoman wondered, why does it feel like Ren Xiaosu did not come up here by himself? This feels more like another company scaled the back of the mountain to attack this place. Many of the bandits' barracks had already collapsed, and bodies were strewn all over the place. However, they did not die from gunshot wounds but stab wounds. A soldier was shocked when he passed by the corpses. Did Ren Xiaosu get into close combat with them? At this moment, the bandits on Mt Ding Yuan were engaged in battle with a mysterious shadow. But halfway through the battle, the shadow suddenly slipped behind a barracks and disappeared. The shadow was extremely fearsome and had killed many of the bandits at the beginning. But for some reason, the shadow started acting less aggressively as it used its quick movements to keep the enemy at bay. It never stayed in one place for too long. But when they were searching for the shadow, gunshots suddenly rang out behind them. Some bandits turned around in shock and saw that the razor-sharp company had already set up 3 heavy machine guns at a distance of several hundred meters away behind them. They started shooting at them mercilessly. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoman led 2nd Platoon to outflank the bandits. They attempted to trap all the bandits in the open area and make them targets of the heavy machine guns. Some bandits reacted quickly and immediately hid behind the ruins of the barracks to launch a counterattack. But just as they were about to shoot, they suddenly saw a hand stretch out of a shadow next to them and throw a grenade over. With a loud explosion, the bandits who had just taken cover behind the ruins were blown sky-high. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman finished organizing a simple defensive formation on the flanks. Zhang Xiaoman had never experienced such a smooth battle before, as though all the hidden threats had been nipped in the bud by someone. It felt like a god's hand was helping them on the battlefield and green-lighting everything for this surprise attack they had launched. However, more than 100 of the bandits in this group had obviously received formal military training before. They retreated slowly all the way back while constantly maintaining an orderly formation. Ren Xiaosu was observing this group of people from the shadows. These 100-odd people were probably the Zone Consortium's regular troops hiding among the bandits. Moreover, the 20-odd soldiers manning the last heavy machine gun position were also more cautious than the bandits. They were probably also a part of the Zone Consortium. The Zone Consortium had placed around 100 of their soldiers here on Mt Dingyuan and assigned them as the last line of defense. If their roles had been reversed with no supernatural beings participating in the battle, the razor-sharp company might not have even broken through the machine gun position after sacrificing all of their men. Now that Ren Xiaosu had spotted the Zone Consortium's regulars, he was not going to go easy on them. From within the shadows at 200 meters away, he aimed his rifle at them and opened fire. The Zone Consortium's regulars never expected an enemy to be over here as well. With just a burst of fire, the orderly formation they maintained while retreating was disrupted. Zhang Xiaoman shouted, "Charge and continue pressing them! Go Ren Xiaosu!" To the north, Zhou Yinglong was leading the entire forward strike battalion to create a defensive line to ensure that the forward operating base at the rear could be built successfully. There were no unusual activities from the Zone Consortium here. But ever since the bandit lair on Mt Guan had been taken, the two sides knew that war had begun. All of a sudden, a soldier ran up to Zhou Yinglong and said in a low voice, "Battalion Commander, the razor-sharp company's Zhang Xiaoman is requesting to speak with you." "Bring the radio over," Zhou Yinglong said while lying on a hill. When the radio telephone operator approached him with the radio set on his back, Zhou Yinglong took the receiver and berated, "Didn't I say to just follow my orders and lay siege on the bandit lair at Mt Dingyuan? What are y'all messing around for? You've been pinned down at the mountainside now, haven't you? Stay right there and don't move. I'll deploy second company there to support you." Zhou Yinglong was furious when a radio man from the razor-sharp company called in to report on the situation at Mt Dingyuan. When the path leading up to Mt Dingyuan had been sealed, it was clear the bandits were planning on fighting to the bitter end. They might have been able to carry out a sneak attack on the bandit lair previously, but it would be impossible for a single company to take the mountain fort. Zhou Yinglong was really worried that Zhang Xiaoman would act impulsively and lead the entire razor-sharp company to its demise at Mt Dingyuan. However, Zhang Xiaoman interrupted Zhou Yinglong. "Battalion Commander, we've taken Mt Dingyuan." Zhou Yinglong was confused. Before the night was over, they had already successfully taken Mt Dingyuan. Everyone knew that a siege tended to take several days or even months before a mountain fort like that could be captured. Zhou Yinglong said with a dark expression, "Have been drinking." "Battalion Commander, we've really taken Mt Dingyuan." Zhang Xiaoman said eagerly, "We were fortunate that we attacked this place. Did you know the Zone Consortium hid 2 howitzers on Mt Dingyuan that were aimed at where the FOB would be built? If we didn't take Mt Dingyuan, you would have all been in deep trouble." Zhou Yinglong cursed out loud, "What deep trouble? As soon as I heard that Mt Dingyuan was sealed, I knew the Zone Consortium had such a move up their sleeves. We already relocated the FOB. Their howitzers would never reach us at all. Our FOB is about 80 kilometers away from Mount Dingyuan, so what are they going to hit us with?" Ren Xiaosu was somewhat relieved when he heard Zhou Yinglong's loud voice coming from the radio. Before this, he was wondering whether Fortress 178 would foresee this cheap move by the Zone Consortium. If they didn't, Fortress 178 really wouldn't live up to its great reputation at fighting wars. However, even a battalion commander like Zhou Yinglong seemed to have a keen situational awareness. Fortress 178 was truly worthy of its reputation. Ren Xiaosu clearly knew he was still deeply ignorant of military knowledge as compared to Zhou Yinglong. He only realized there were long-range howitzers on Mt Dingyuan after overhearing the spy's conversation with the Qing consortium. Zhou Yinglong's voice eased up a little. How many of our people were sacrificed or wounded? Zhang Xiaoman replied, Battalion Commander, only 7 people were wounded, and no one died. On the other end of the call, Zhou Yinglong fell silent for a while. Then he asked, how many bandits did y'all wipe out? Zhang Xiaoman said calmly, we killed 927 enemies, of which 131 are suspected to be the Zone Consortium's regulars. Behind that tone was a hint of smugness. Zhou Yinglong knew well what the razor-sharp company was capable of. Under normal circumstances, he would not be surprised if the entire razor-sharp company perished while attacking Mt Dingyuan. Zhou Yinglong understood very quickly. He instinctively questioned, is the Ren Xiaosu assigned by the commander really that capable? Ren Xiaosu had already walked away. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu as he sat alone in the ruins and rested in the distance. After ending the conversation, he walked over to the ruins. Then he sat down next to Ren Xiaosu and asked, what are you fighting so hard for? Ren Xiaosu could clearly have attacked Mt Dingyuan with them after the mortars had taken out the heavy machine gun positions. However, this young man chose to take the risk of climbing up the mountain with his bare hands and launching an attack on the entire bandit camp all by himself. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, doing this can help reduce your casualties. Zhang Xiaoman said, but people always die in battle. Sometimes when walking on the road, enemies hiding in the forest and bushes will suddenly pull the triggers of their machine guns and turn your comrades around you into blood-drenched sieves. It's also possible that an artillery shell could suddenly land at your feet and blow up your legs, ripping your internal organs in the process. The battlefield's a place where we have to put our trust in fate. Everything lies with fate. No one can control it. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and said, how can we know if we don't try? Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. He realized the reason why Ren Xiaosu was pushing so hard was because he really wanted everyone to stay alive. But this was war. How could there be no casualties in a company tasked to overcome all difficulties? Unless a miracle happened. They had almost finished expending their bullets as well. 7.62 mm bullets were most commonly used here in the northwest, so plenty of them could be found at the bandit lair. How much ammunition could be expended in a single battle? That was an incalculable amount. If you included the bullets used in training, it was likely that thousands or even tens of thousands of bullets would be expended just to down one person in battle. This counting was purely based on data. Most of the time, the number of bullets expended using suppressive fire was probably much higher. After Zhang Xiaoman and the others brought out all of the ammunition from the bandit lair on Mt Dingyuan, the soldiers went to retrieve the empty magazine that had been tossed aside during the battle and reinserted fresh bullets. Zhang Xiaoman sighed emotionally. How satisfying it is to take this entire mountain fort by ourselves. All the spoils of war are ours to keep. Wait a minute, why aren't there any grenades here again? Everyone only realized it now that the company commander mentioned it. Looks like it. We only found some individual grenades on the bandits and have not seen an entire box of them yet. The bandits on Mt Dingyuan aren't even poor, so why can't we even find a full box of grenades? When Ren Xiaosu, who was standing a distance away, heard this, he felt so guilty he did not say anything. Actually, there were as many as 10 boxes of grenades here, with each filled with 20 grenades. But he had already put all of them in his storage space. All of a sudden, the voice from the palace said, "Quest complete. Awarded 5 attribute points. You can distribute them as you like." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. As expected, the rewards were much better for a more challenging quest like the one with a progression percentage. However, he had only completed 90% of the quest in which he had to help his comrades lessen their burden. Why did it suddenly jump to a 100%? Wait a minute, was it due to the 10 boxes of grenades? By putting those grenades into his storage space, it could also be counted as helping his teammates lessen their burden? Ren Xiaosu, who was always taking advantage of any loopholes in the palace's requirements, was shocked. It could even be done like that? He had already stuffed 6 boxes of grenades into his storage space at Mt. Guan. But since there was no alert for the completion of the quest, he did not notice the quest progression had ticked up. If he did, he would have finished the quest at that time. Ren Xiaosu was more than happy to help his comrades lessen their burden. He evenly distributed 3 points to strength and 2 points to dexterity. His strength now reached 13.5, while his dexterity was at 12.1. From these attributes alone, Ren Xiaosu's current fitness was already more than 4 times that of a normal adult male. However, Ren Xiaosu was looking forward to whether a new skill would emerge when his strength and dexterity hit 20 much more. Like the City Crusher power-up with a duration of 30 seconds that he had gained after surpassing 10 points in both those attributes. Perhaps there would be a qualitative change every time it exceeded a threshold? While heading down the mountain, everyone in the razor-sharp company had their arms full of supplies. If they could move those 2 howitzers as well, Zhang Xiaoman would probably have dragged them all the way back to the forward operating base. Before leaving, Zhang Xiaoman used the TNT to blow up the muzzles of the 2 howitzers' barrels. This was to prevent the Zone Consortium's people from using them again. Under normal circumstances, they would rather choose to destroy large siege weapons on the battlefield that were less mobile instead of spending great effort to take them away. On their way down the mountain, a fellow soldier suddenly thanked Ren Xiaosu when he walked past him before continuing on as though it were nothing. Immediately after, more and more soldiers thanked Ren Xiaosu when they passed him. They were thanking Ren Xiaosu for helping them take most of the fire in the battle. If it weren't for Ren Xiaosu taking the risk by himself, it would not be a surprise if half of them were killed in combat. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. This time, he had not even requested them to thank him. Even so, all of his comrades were really sincere in thanking him. In just a moment, Ren Xiaosu had gained more than 100 gratitude tokens. His gratitude tokens had suddenly shot up to around 400. After just one battle, Ren Xiaosu not only gained 10 boxes of grenades, 5 attribute points, and a 100-odd thanks, but he also earned the trust of his comrades. Zhang Xiaoman had said that you could only trust the guns and bullets in your hands, as well as your comrades in the trenches who provided covering fire for you on the battlefield. Ren Xiaosu kept quiet as he looked at his comrades in front of him heading down the mountain. Then he deliberately slowed down and waited for those who had not yet thanked him to pass him from behind. They would have to advance all the way northwest now. Zhou Yinglong had ordered the razor-sharp company to join up with the forward strike battalion at the forward operating base first. They would have to wait for the rear troops to fully assemble at the forward operating base before setting off to the next destination based on Commander Zhang's next battle plan. The strongholds under the jurisdiction of the Zone Consortium were all northeast of the forward operating base, while the vast Gobi Desert was situated more than 200 kilometers north. As the razor-sharp company had to travel more than 80 kilometers to get back to the forward operating base, all of the razor-sharp company's soldiers were dog-tired when they arrived. Even dogs would not be as tired as them. It was mainly because they had carried too many fucking things. But the moment they entered the forward operating base, Zhang Xiaoman and the others held their heads high and looked really spirited. Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an even carried their rocket launchers on their shoulders proudly. They really couldn't look any more impressive than they did. Then they walked all the way to the command post's tent to be welcomed back by the entire army's advance guard. Ren Xiaosu asked, "Captain, is this really necessary?" Zhang Xiaoman said unhappily, "You wouldn't understand. Our razor-sharp company has emerged victorious, so the entire army must have heard about how a company of just over 100 people wiped out 2 mountain forts. We have to put on a front to show them the might of our razor-sharp company. Ren Xiaosu did not know whether to laugh or cry. They had clearly been complaining that they were dead tired before entering the military base. But when he saw his fellow soldiers around them, they really were looking at the razor-sharp company with adulation. Even the soldiers who were setting up the tents in the base had stopped their work to whisper among themselves. Zhou Yinglong's loud voice boomed, "Put the fucking RPGs away already. It makes y'all look like you're coming here to attack the camp." With that, Zhou Yinglong circled the razor-sharp company. When he saw the 7 wounded soldiers lying on stretchers, he shouted, "Where's the medics? Come and carry the wounded off for treatment." "There's no need for that." A wounded soldier from the razor-sharp company hurriedly said, "Ren Xiaosu has already applied some medicine onto our wounds. We've already recovered from our injuries. How can traditional medicine be effective?" Zhou Yinglong said unhappily, "If you've suffered any injuries, you should get them treated, so cut the crap." Ren Xiaosu realized that even though Zhou Yinglong was harsh with his words, his first reaction when he saw the razor-sharp company was to check on the casualties of the company and treat the wounded. The razor-sharp company's wounded were getting anxious. "Ren Xiaosu, please explain to the battalion commander that we're truly all right. If they got taken away to be treated, they would not be able to participate in the next battle. While their brothers were off to fight at the front lines, they would have to recuperate in the medical center. How could they accept that?" Ren Xiaosu looked at Zhou Yinglong and said, "Commander Zhang has also seen the effects of my medicine before. It might be a traditional drug, but it'll heal all kinds of surface injuries within 3 days. Nowadays, there's plenty of magical herbs that can be found in the wilderness." In order not to get stretchered off, the injured even jumped off their stretchers and moved about vigorously to show they were absolutely fine. It wasn't an act at all and they really were fine. Zhang Xiaoman, who was standing by the side, directly scolded, "Why didn't you all fucking walk on your own when you were fine?" The wounded chuckled and said, "If we could walk a little less, why not?" Their comrades of the razor-sharp company who had carried them started cursing, "Ya bastards are fucking awful. Y'all are too shameless." At this moment, Zhou Yinglong asked, "Are these all the casualties you suffered after taking Mt Ding Yuan?" Zhang Xiaoman said modestly, "It was all due to Battalion Commander Zhou's good teachings." Zhou Yinglong was so angry he smiled. "Enough of your boot-licking. Get out of here and write up the battle report for me." The faces of Zhang Xiaoman and the others fell. "Battalion Commander, all of us in the razor-sharp company are faithful veterans. Now should be the time for us to enjoy some good food and drink here at the FOB rather than writing some battle report." "Why?" Zhou Yinglong gave Zhang Xiaoman the side-eye. "Would you also like me to personally pour you some W?" Zhang Xiaoman thought for a moment. "Well, if you don't mind," Zhou Yinglong kicked Zhang Xiaoman in the ass. "Get lost and write the report for me." It was the usual practice to write a report after every battle. On one hand, it was to summarize all of the details of a battle. On the other hand, it was to list any mistakes and lessons learned in combat to prevent the same mistakes from happening again in the future. But Zhang Xiaoman and this group of gruff men hated writing battle reports the most. Since they had already won the battle, why should they still have to list their mistakes and lessons learned? All they had to do was win the battle. These gruff men of the razor-sharp company were all nestled and gathered around Zhang Xiaoman in the tent that had just been put up. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu while holding a notebook and a pencil. "Ren Xiaosu, I'm just a refugee, so I don't know how to write," Ren Xiaosu said. "Oh." Zhang Xiaoman lowered his head dejectedly at first but immediately figured out that something was not right. How could the successor chosen by Commander Zhang be fucking illiterate? If you don't want to write the fucking report, just say it. Doesn't it prick your conscience to lie that blatantly? Zhang Xiaoman chewed on the end of the pencil and tried to recall the details of the battle. "It feels like the enemy was defeated even though we did not put in much effort." After thinking for a long time, Zhang Xiaoman still did not know how he should write the report. That was because their victory was mainly due to Ren Xiaosu. That was the truth. Ren Xiaosu, I think it's better for you to write the report. If you're really illiterate, you can just tell me and I will write it out for you. Zhang Xiaoman said, more importantly, we don't even know how exactly you managed to turn the bandit lair at Mt Ding Yuan upside down. Also, what you did will earn you great honors. You'll get promoted right after submitting this report. Ren Xiaosu said, you can just write that everyone fought bravely. Fighting the battle involved the entire company, so I can't take all the credit for it. I don't think that's right. Zhang Xiaoman said awkwardly, we'll be really embarrassed that way. It's not like us to accept credit where it isn't due. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Ren Xiaosu said, forget it, I'll write instead. Then Ren Xiaosu grabbed Zhang Xiaoman's notebook and pencil from him and started making up details of the battle. He described his comrades as soldiers who had shown unsurpassed bravery and resourcefulness in combat. He also wrote about how they broke through the defensive line and killed the enemies in an orderly manner. Zhang Xiaoman was dazed reading what he had written. Was I that great? After he finished writing the report, Ren Xiaosu handed it to Zhang Xiaoman. Take it to the battalion commander. We'll all share the credit. As for Ren Xiaosu, he did not really have a sense of belonging to Fortress 178 yet. He just wanted to use the power of Fortress 178 to take revenge on the Zone Consortium. Therefore, whatever credit he might deserve was completely unimportant to him. After his revenge, he would head to the Central Plains to search for Xiaoyu, Yan Liuyuan, and the others. He did not plan to become an official in Fortress 178. So he'd rather leave the credit for others. By now, the entire razor-sharp company had acknowledged Ren Xiaosu, and he was no longer ostracized by the others. This group of men had even forgotten about the previous incident where Ren Xiaosu caused a misunderstanding and led them to pick a fight with Second Company. However, Zhou Yinglong's intention was to find out about Ren Xiaosu's capabilities from the battle report. He knew it was mostly to the credit of Ren Xiaosu that they could take Mt Ding Yuan with almost no casualties. He also wanted to know what this person the commander had selected was like. However, Ren Xiaosu's name was hardly mentioned in the entire report. Zhou Yinglong glanced at Zhang Xiaoman and said unhappily, how dare you steal the accomplishments of your subordinate? Do you think I won't execute you? Feeling wronged, Zhang Xiaoman stammered, but this report was written by Ren Xiaosu himself. Zhou Yinglong got lost in thought. How could a young man not be greedy for success? What kind of a successor had Commander Zhang chosen? His group of old comrades would definitely ask him about Ren Xiaosu's performance as a soldier under his command. As the battalion commander, wouldn't it be such an embarrassment if he could not even answer that? Zhou Yinglong suddenly asked Zhang Xiaoman, tell me, how did Ren Xiaosu fight this battle? Zhang Xiaoman replied honestly, I didn't see it either, battalion commander. Get out of here. Their days at the forward operating base were not as comfortable as expected. At 6:20 am, Ren Xiaosu could already hear reveille blaring outside their tents. Then soldiers gathered in their respective formations and began their morning exercises. Very quickly, cadences were being shouted from outside the forward operating base. The soldiers had to run 5 kilometers in full kit before heading out to the battlefield. Only the razor-sharp company was the exception. That was because they had just finished a battle, so they had the privilege of skipping training to recover at the forward operating base. But after reveille sounded, Jiao Xiaochen could not get back to sleep. He laid on his cot and said, something doesn't feel right if I don't do anything after reveille. Is there anyone else who can't sleep like me? In the military tent, there was a scattered response from everyone. Wanna go for a jog? You can't get back to sleep either. It'll be a miracle if I can fall asleep now. Come on, let's go for a run. With that, Ren Xiaosu saw everyone from first platoon get up to put on their uniforms. As such, he got up as well. When he walked out of the tent, he realized that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoons were also out of their tents. This included Han Minglei, a medic, and Li Xingcheng, a cook. Zhang Xiaoman said with a chuckle, "Well done, gentlemen. Even though our razor-sharp company has gained victory, we can't get too uppity. We have to keep training." Jiao Xiaochen muttered, "You're the one who's most uppity right now. Will you die if you don't speak?" Zhang Xiaoman stared at him. But at this moment, Zhou Yinglong's orderly trotted over to them. "Captain Zhang Xiaoman, Battalion Commander Zhou is requesting your presence at the command post." "So, your current rank is half a rank above your appointment, but due to the razor-sharp company being a reinforced company and even though your pay had been increased, your responsibilities remained unchanged." Zhou Yinglong said, "You've made another big contribution this time, so the personnel division is already preparing talks with you." Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaoman knew what was going on. "I'm not leaving the razor-sharp company." Zhou Yinglong was stunned. "This is a good thing. Why are you unhappy? Right now, the razor-sharp company is in the midst of a tough battle. What does it say if I, the company commander, leave at such a time? Even if I get transferred, it'll have to be at the end of the war." Zhang Xiaoman raised his voice and shouted. "What are you yelling for?" Zhou Yinglong got unhappy. "I was just trying to hear your opinion. It's a good thing to begin with, but look at what you're making it out to be. Battalion Commander, do you want me to open up a space for Ren Xiaosu? If that's the case, that's fine too. You'll just have to let me remain a soldier in the razor-sharp company." Zhang Xiaoman said, "I'm willing to let him take over as company commander, but I won't leave the razor-sharp company." Zhou Yinglong's temper went away. People like Zhang Xiaoman, who was unwilling to be promoted and would rather get demoted than leave the company, probably only existed among the troops of Fortress 178. However, Zhou Yinglong said, "Then you can just stay and continue being the commander of the razor-sharp company. This matter has nothing to do with Ren Xiaosu. The commendation has already been given, and the entire company will receive the third-class unit citation, except for him." "Why?" Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. "Just because he was selected by the commander, that's why he's being treated so harshly." Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. He had thought he was going to be transferred to make space for Ren Xiaosu, even though he did not think Ren Xiaosu would be promoted so soon. But it turned out that Ren Xiaosu was the only one who would not receive a medal. "Enough, we can't figure out the commander's thoughts. You should go back first. The award ceremony will be held tonight." Zhou Yinglong waved him off. Zhang Xiaoman returned to his company looking out of sorts. He continued to lead everyone in their exercise and training, but everyone could tell that Zhang Xiaoman had something on his mind. "Captain, did the battalion commander lecture you?" Jiao Xiaochen asked. "I feel like you have something on your mind." Zhang Xiaoman said, "The commanders decided to give each of us the third-class unit citation because we took MT Ding Yuan and MT Guan successfully." "That's great." Jiao Xiaochen was overjoyed. "Maybe everyone in our razor-sharp company will even get promoted to officers after the war is over." "What's so good about that?" Zhang Xiaoman said, "Only Ren Xiaosu did not get commended and won't receive the third-class medal." Everyone was surprised. "Why? Even if Ren Xiaosu did not mention anything about himself in the report, he should still get the award if the rest of the company's also getting it. Could there be some problems with the report? Why don't we get the battalion commander to write a new one?" "Yes, let's go look for the commander. This is so unfair. Ren Xiaosu risked his life to complete the company's mission. No one else could have climbed the back of that mountain, right? Even if any of us could have climbed that mountain, we might not have caused much damage to the bandit lair." Jiao Xiaochen said angrily, "Winning this battle should have been his credit in the first place." Everyone looked at Ren Xiaosu. However, Ren Xiaosu just smiled and said, "It's all right. It's pretty useless to me even if I were given an award. There's no need to go to the commander on my behalf. Didn't you all say that obedience is our soldierly duty? Let's leave it to the higher UPS to decide however they want. We just need to listen to our orders. Jiang Xiaoman said in exasperation, you need to fight for what you deserve too. Why should I? Ren Xiaosu laughed and continued running. Hurry up and run, or we won't make it in time for dinner. Everyone looked at one another, not knowing what to say. As the night's award ceremony was quite important, the forward operating base had organized it as a pep rally to motivate the soldiers. However, Jiang Xiaoman started addressing all of the razor-sharp company's soldiers except for Ren Xiaosu. Listen up, all of you. Writing this jointly signed petition is an act of insubordination. If the commander gets upset, I'm afraid that every one of us here will no longer have a future in the military. I don't believe that the commander is that kind of person. He's definitely open to suggestions. Jiao Xiaochen said. Anyway, I'm gonna sign it. We have to make sure that Ren Xiaosu gets recognized for his contributions. If Ren Xiaosu does not want to fight for it, we'll fight for it on his behalf. Jiang Xiaoman said, all right, I'll write it, then all of you can sign it. The group of gruff men lowered their heads and pondered how to write the petition. It was really difficult for them. Zhang Jinglin arrived at the forward operating base and was having a meeting with all the commanders of the fighting forces. Just as they were about to discuss how to cross the Buin River at the front line, an orderly came inside and whispered to him, the officers from the Razor Sharp Company are all here. They said they're representing the entire Razor Sharp Company in submitting a petition. Zhang Jinglin smiled and said, didn't I already say they would be given the third-class unit citation? What are they petitioning about? Let them in. The other commanders whispered, Commander, should we go outside? No need. Zhang Jinglin shook his head. Let's listen to what our men from the Razor Sharp Company have to petition about. Jiang Xiaoman, Jiao Xiaochen, and the other officers were brought into the command post tent. Zhang Jinglin smiled and said, tell me, what do the men of the hour who got us our first victory in the opening battles want to petition about? This is our petition. Jiang Xiaoman handed a crumpled piece of paper to Zhang Jinglin. We just feel that Ren Xiaosu has been treated unfairly. We would like to resubmit our battle report. He should be the one credited for winning this battle. Oh! Zhang Jinglin nodded as he read the petition. The petition was even signed by all the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company. He said, do you mean to say you all fabricated the battle report, and that you too, Zhang Xiaoman and Jiao Xiaochen, have falsely claimed credit for the war contribution? Zhang Xiaoman said through his teeth, even if Commander wants to punish us, we'll still admit to it. However, Ren Xiaosu really contributed to the victory. You can't give all of us the third-class unit citation but forget about him. Isn't that as good as a slap to the face? Zhang Jinglin said calmly, let's look at the facts without any bias. Fabricating the battle report, condemning the military from within, and falsely claiming credit for war contributions, these actions will subject you to be revoked of your third-class unit citation. It's no exception even if you were all men of the hour. As for Ren Xiaosu, I already knew about it. Jiang Xiaoman and the others were stunned. What did he mean by he already knew about it? After that, they were led out of the tent by the orderly. Zhang Jinglin slid the petition to the other commanders with a smile. Everyone, have a read. Zhou Yinglong was seated at the end of the line. He thought to himself, Commander Zhang clearly looks like he's in a great mood. By showing the petition to the other commanders, he was obviously trying to tell them what Ren Xiaosu, his chosen candidate, had contributed to the war. As a soldier who had just joined the company, what had he done to deserve his comrades giving up their third-class citation just so they could petition on his behalf? Ren Xiaosu was far more endearing to the Razor Sharp Company than they had imagined. If you were a beam of light, you would eventually encounter other beams of light behind a dark thundercloud. As Zhou Yinglong read the petition, he stole a glance at Zhang Jinglin's expression. However, he realized Zhang Jinglin did not seem unhappy. He softly probed, "I didn't expect those bastards would come here to chide the commander for acting unfairly. Should I punish them when I return to the barracks?" Zhang Jinglin smiled. "How could I not know what you're thinking? All right, there's no need to test me. I'm not angry." "That's good then." Zhou Yinglong chuckled. "Commander, you're such a kind person." At this moment, a brigade commander suddenly wondered, the razor-sharp company under Zhou Yinglong's command is notorious for being difficult. Ren Xiaosu has only been posted there for a few days, but he's already gained so much support. Zhang Jinglin said, "Enough, let's not discuss this anymore. The award ceremony tonight will also be cancelled. Zhou Yinglong, go back and tell the razor-sharp company that the reason Ren Xiaosu was not included in the third-class citations was that I had intended to award him the second-class decoration. However, since Ren Xiaosu fabricated the battle report that was submitted to me, his second-class medal will also be revoked. We'll start discussing our next battle plan now." Zhou Yinglong, who was sitting in the back, suddenly felt his teeth aching. The commander was way too scheming. He did not even have to give out any awards in the end, and all the commanders of the various fighting forces already knew Ren Xiaosu had already gained a foothold in the razor-sharp company. Not only was his combat strength ferocious, but he was also a very inspiring figure there. Previously, the commanders were still discussing among themselves that Zhang Jinglin might have placed Ren Xiaosu into the razor-sharp company purely by coincidence, not because he wanted Ren Xiaosu to be his successor. But judging from Commander Zhang's actions, he was clearly paving the way for Ren Xiaosu, wasn't he? Of course, to forge iron, one had to be strong first. If Ren Xiaosu were a weakling, Zhang Jinglin could not groom him as commander even if he wanted to. But as it turned out, Ren Xiaosu was not even close to being a weakling. Zhou Yinglong was a little puzzled. Why did it feel like Commander Zhang was very confident in Ren Xiaosu? Although Ren Xiaosu did not seem to have gained anything out of the mission, all the commanders had a clearer understanding of Zhang Jinglin's intentions and got to know Ren Xiaosu better as a person. Perhaps this had always been Zhang Jinglin's intention. Zhang Xiaoman and the other officers were not back at their own camp yet. People from the personnel division were already coming to the barracks to tell them the award ceremony that was to be held that night had been cancelled. Ren Xiaosu wondered, why did it get cancelled? It was only the officers who went to submit the petition. The rest of the soldiers did not go. The soldiers from the razor-sharp company standing next to Ren Xiaosu did not say a word when they heard that. It was those from the personnel division who said, "Your company's officers went to the commander to protest the fact that you weren't awarded the third-class citation and everyone at the company thought it was unfair to you. The commander has also revoked all of their 3-class unit citations over how the battle report was fabricated." Only now did Zhang Xiaoman and the others finally appear back at the camp. Ren Xiaosu frowned and looked at Zhang Xiaoman. "Why did y'all do that? I already said that I don't need any credit for my contributions. You might not want to claim it, but that's your business." Zhang Xiaoman said loudly, "But our brothers at the razor-sharp company can't stand to see such unfairness. We're from the razor-sharp company, and we're all in this together. One for all, and all for one." Ren Xiaosu stayed silent for a long time. However, the employee from the personnel division who was standing beside him curled his lips and said, "Ren Xiaosu had been awarded the second-class decoration, but that's also been revoked now." "Revoked?" Zhang Xiaoman's smile faded away. "What the fuck did you say?" The employee from the personnel division shot a look at Zhang Xiaoman. "We already prepared the second-class commendation document for Ren Xiaosu, but it's been cancelled now." Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu, then at the employee. He facepalmed and did not know what to say. The employee from the personnel division laughed. "All right, don't be in a hurry to feel dismayed. HQ has already told us to hold back all of your third-class unit citations until y'all make another contribution. We'll take everything into consideration then. Really? Zhang Xiaoman suddenly looked up. The staffer from the personnel division said, as the entire military already knows that you all are the heroes of the opening battle, you'll still get what you deserve. Also, the commander has given the word that you can keep the spoils of war from the battle at Mt Dingyuan. Zhang Xiaoman was instantly overjoyed. The spoils of war had always been required to be sent to the supply division to be allocated. After every battle, the razor-sharp company's supplies would instantly get knocked back close to zero again. Now that the commander had allowed them to retain their spoils of war, they had probably become the most well-armed company in the entire military. After the personnel division left, Ren Xiaosu thanked Zhang Xiaoman and the others very seriously. I'll remember everyone's efforts. Thank you. What's there to thank us for? Zhang Xiaoman waved his hand. If it weren't for you, most of us wouldn't have made it back. Ren Xiaosu looked at these gruff men from the northwest and was suddenly looking forward to continuing to fight alongside them. At this moment, Zhou Yinglong strode over with a loping stride and yelled, "You maggots, I'll settle the score with y'all after the war is over. Everyone is to pack up your stuff and head to Shishuan village. I want you to take the village within 7 days." Shishuan village was about 70 kilometers northeast of the forward operating base. No one lived there, and it was just a small town that remained behind from before the cataclysm. Now it was a defensive strongpoint for the Zone Consortium at the southernmost side of their territory. The reason Fortress 178 was so eager to attack Shishuan village was because it was too close to their forward operating base. It was to prevent the Zone Consortium from setting up long-range artillery there and putting the forward operating base in their attack radius. The safety of the forward operating base was one of the most important issues at the beginning of the war, and the main mission for the Forward Strike Battalion was to ensure the safety of the forward operating base. Zhang Xiaoman took out a map and scanned it. I heard there's a ton of buildings in Shishuan village that are still standing. They're very suitable for setting up HMGs in. Also, there's new defensive fortifications and bunkers built by the Zone Consortium. This urban warfare isn't going to be easy to handle. Urban warfare was also called urban combat. Under most circumstances, urban warfare was fought at close quarters, and situations would even arise where close combat was required. Hostile and friendly forces could hardly be differentiated from each other, leading to extremely dangerous conflicts. The narrow streets, complex environment, unseen enemies, and gunfire that could come from anywhere. You wouldn't know when a gun would suddenly point out of a dark window and start taking lives. Can't we get the armored brigade to provide cover? Jiao Xiaochen asked with a frown. No. Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. The FOB's facilities haven't been fully upgraded to serve them yet. The armored brigade can't throw themselves headlong into the battlefield. For a moment, even these fearless thugs from the razor-sharp company got a little worried. Only Ren Xiaosu was unaffected. It was as though he were not bothered by the prospect of urban combat.